Yo, I'll keep the introductions incredibly short when it comes to this stuff. I will just hop right in. We're going to go right after the introductions here. I'm just going to try and get, oh my god, literally nothing is fucking working right now. I am absolutely just livid at this point in time. I've been spending the past 15-20 minutes in order to get this motherfucker started, so we're just going to go to $1.25 speed. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the stream on the fresh and fit end that's right here. So, okay, I got the sound that's right there. I can go to 1.25 speed. We'll just catch up, and then we'll just try to watch in, and I will fill in the rest afterwards, make sure the sound is turned on. Everything's all good from there.
But we got some special for y'all. We canceled the after hours. We're going to have a debate. You guys have been waiting for this one for a while.
After hours,
so let me go ahead and make some quick announcements before we get into the show. Number one, Roman.com/freshfit. Check us out over there, guys, because you know we'll probably get canceled any day now with Sneako. And he's over there. .com/Sneako, so go check him out.
Yes, sir,
over there. It's the future.
And Kai and Speed just joined Rumble too, so it's really taking over. Ooh. All the people that were doubting, everybody that's talking about Kick. I know Aid is panicking right now because Rumble's looking really good. Kai and Speed, two of the biggest Gen Z streamers, are going to be a huge demographic coming over. Join Rumble before it's too late because things are really bad. So really.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to keep the pause and everything to a complete minimum. I'm going to be writing down anything that I want to talk about afterwards, so we'll just keep it as live as possible. So I'll be in the chat.
Podcaststore.com. I got my Chris the Bum shirt on, my favorite one, because Chris definitely is a bum and he doesn't even know how to do the cameras correctly. Elf, Chris, once again, bro. You know what's funny? He's the one that set the cameras up.
Hey, oh my god,
man.
New angles, man. New
stupid. Come on, man.
Hey, do a lot.
Oh yeah, that's an excuse to use every time. And then also, guys, get freshfitpodcaststore.com. Definitely go get a Chris the Bum shirt after that one. Yeah. And then also check out our clips channel, guys, Fresh Fit Clips. And then also check out our other channel, more Fresh Fit Clips. Check out Fresh Fit Vlog.
Yep. Guys, for vlogs, man, funny shorts, go check it out. Guys, join the network, man. Add value, get value. Let's go. And then Myron's channel.
Fed 1811, as you guys know, I break down criminal cases. Actually, I changed it to Fed Reacts.
Fed Reacts.
It's called Fed Reacts now, guys. So go ahead and check it out. The last episode I did was, God damn it.
Golden
State. Yeah, Golden State Killer. Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
I did Golden State Killer yesterday. He went on the run for like 30, 40 years. It took forever for them to catch him, but they finally did through DNA. So if you guys want to go check that out, go check it out, Fed Reacts. And then I'm going to be dropping Al Capone and the outfit on Thursday this week.
Okay, good.
And yeah, and then I won't be in town, guys. So you guys are actually going to get a special show with these guys without me here on Friday.
Rollo, Sartain, and myself.
Yes.
Running the show.
And Sneako might come with somebody too. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll have something for y'all. But anything else? Oh yeah, get my book, guys. Why Women Deserve Less. And I'm sorry to the chat. And then also all the guys. All their links are below, guys. Go support them down below. I got their Rumbles, their YouTubes, etc. Destiny, Sneako, Rollo, Tomassi, Michael Sartain. So I'll read these chats real quick. From this point forward, guys, we're not going to read anything outside of $100 and up because obviously we want to make sure that we have the debate going nice and smoothly. Just so you guys know, me and Fresh are not going to participate. We're just going to simply moderate. I got a couple topics here on hand, but let me read these and I'll give you guys the ground rules. Jordan 14 goes, Sneako too focused on a vasectomy last time. The point is not to have kids when you're broke and haven't built yourself up yet and can't provide. Not every man is young and successful like you are. Well, sir, you will be armchair debating somewhere else because don't worry. Colin Stevens goes, you should ask the resident blue-haired cuck if he still supports the position on ethical CP, have him elaborate and see if the panel agrees. That's not today's topic, my friend. Manuel J. Hernandez, Destiny likes men unless his chick ran through. Not the best guy to get advice from. Be a man. Okay, Mulan. We got Fresh's stutter. Did he get invited to the round table again? El Fresh. I hope you haven't skipped any therapy sessions.
Let's go, sir.
You've been skipping them sessions.
Let's go.
And he did come late, by the way, too.
CPT.
Yeah, he definitely did come late. Masculine Excellence goes, question for Destiny. You think it's important for a father to be physically present in their son's
psychically
life? Particularly. What?
Psychically.
Psychically. Oh, shit.
Well, probably meant physically, I'd imagine. But maybe they're that kind of person.
Yeah, let's use grammar.
Present in their son's life, particularly during the adolescence and teen years. If so, how much in-person father-son time is necessary to raise a virtuous son? That might come up in today's topic.
Trying to figure out why I can't see this
Zorino goes, I'd like to hear Sneako and others answer this. Is Leonardo DiCaprio a high-value man for scoring with 19-year-old models in his late 40s without having kids? Don't worry, we'll talk about that. 0259 goes, I like how Destiny makes fun of extreme RP ideology while he believes a woman's body count don't matter. Okay?
We're going to get to that today, too.
Martin, would you say Destiny fits the description of a placeholder husband and he's just coping when he says he's cool with his girl cheating on him? No, whatever, man.
This is about them guys, not us.
Come on, man.
Yeah, man.
Derek Stacy, $20. Have y'all looked into the Israel and this Adesanya situation yet?
Stylebender. The UFC guy with the girl.
Oh, yeah, we'll cover that probably next week.
We will, yeah.
His ex,
or you can just watch my video on it right now.
Of 2 years is trying to take half his stuff. No kids, no marriage. P Clown World. FNF, W Sneako, W Destiny, W.
Adesanya, I'll pay for all your lawyer fees to beat this case.
Oh, that's crazy, bro.
We can get to it then.
There we go.
Good.
Hey, you're supposed to moderate, man. Be quiet.
So, Martin and Sneako, vasectomy is not a solution. Better advice would be to make a bunch of money and leave the U.S. Okay. Samuel L. Goes, Lyra Gonzalo has been arrested again by Ukrainian SBU at gunpoint. Really? There's a video. He needs your public support and the social pressure to save his life. Please bring attention to this extremely important fact. God help Lyra. God damn, bro.
Is that like for the third time or the second time?
Yeah, it's the second time.
Maybe the last time.
That we know about.
They're hating over there.
I saw the second time. I didn't know.
Charlie Jones, hi, I love Funna. Rollo's explanation of the tweet didn't make sense. He said a high value man is subjective to you, which it's not. Don't worry, we're going to actually define that at the top of the show. High value man is objective based on the marketplace with society. Otherwise, everyone is high value man.
I think this is going to be a lot more measured.
Right? And then Nate Diaz goes, Destiny mind fucks women and keeps them on the line with Blue Pill Game. His wife is just a trophy 304. He's admitted last pod that he doesn't really care about marriage. Rollo at least lives life S and D. Say you should
suck and dick.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
I don't think that's what the N is for.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what.
Sneako Phil Alpha getting the French girl's number who he won't wife yet. Lectures FNF that high value men should want more than just sex. Is your Pat's hypocrisy padded with sermonizing?
You guys are in too deep. Like these super chats are just way. I get a girl's number on a show.
This is where you're humbled at the beginning of the show, right here.
Don't worry.
Any more about me sucking dick? Or
those haven't come yet. When can we have Coach Greg Adams on the show? By the way, I've been following ever since he got on, and 40K subs. Will anyone in this table hold a debate with CGA? We agree with a lot of his points. Tell the truth. Did the show start late because Destiny was scissoring Sneako's girl? No, it did not. First, it was actually because fresh. First super chat.
Was scissoring Sneako's girl?
What the?
You guys have brought so much Bites My Life credit. Score over 750 got me some business credit. I appreciate you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Chris, aren't these Chris?
Yeah, these are before, but it's fine now.
Okay, how many? Okay. I wonder if Sneako will be on Rollo's side today, considering how he changes his mind every week. What if?
Tell me exactly what I changed my mind on. So did anyone ever say that, or just like I'm a leaf blowing in the wind?
He's already gone.
Just ignoring them, bro. I'm just reading through these.
Well, you guys kind of agreed with that point of view, but it's okay.
It's okay. Where we at here?
20 up.
Fresh,
no, it's cool.
Thank God. No, we're going 100 up from.
No, but it's over.
Oh, these came from before.
Yeah,
bro. Okay. Thank God, Fresh ain't talking. Sorry, homie. And why Sneako looking extra Asian all of a sudden? Okay.
No, you look extra black always.
All right, Mark, go ahead.
This is true. Okay, so
I guess you guys
quick
know
little.
what my
So here's a summary of what's going to go on, guys. As you guys know, they have some disagreements on some things. We're going to go ahead and moderate the debate. Me and Fresh will not be jumping in. We are simply going to be here to moderate. We're going to cover 4 main topics: the vasectomy tweet, dual mating strategy, divorce, and promiscuity. But to kick it off, we're going to go ahead and define certain terms: high value man, alpha male, hypergamy. Do you guys want to introduce yourself to the people real quick?
Yeah, real quick.
I think probably everybody knows who I am. Rollo Tomassi, I'm the author of the 5 books that are the Rational Male series books.
I'm Michael Sartain. I'm a former U.S. military officer. I flew 5 years special ops, 2 years counterintelligence, and now I have a performance coaching program, and then I host a podcast with him.
I can't get it in the chat on my fucking phone. Pisses me off.
I'm Steve Bunnell. I host politics YouTube, philosophy YouTube, and video games on YouTube. YouTube.com/Destiny. I've been doing this for about 13 years.
All right.
Sneako, canceled streamer on Rumble, and certified douche nozzle.
There you go.
That's correct.
Fantastic. So, guys, all the chats are going to be shown on screen. However, we're only going to read the ones that are 100 and up, just so that we can make sure that we get through this debate. So, first, we're going to start with defining what a high value man is, alpha male, and hypergamy, and then we're going to come to basically an agreed upon definition for the table. So that way, nothing is lost in translation during the course of the conversation. We already got 20,000 y'all in here, so do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and then subscribe to everyone's channel here: Sneako on Rumble, Destiny on YouTube, Rollo on YouTube, and Michael Sartain on YouTube as well. Their links are below. And then, so we'll go ahead and who wants to kick it off with defining high value man?
Before we define things, I wrote like 6 things down so we can all agree on things. We have like a common base going forward. Okay. So I wrote 6 rules that I hope we can all kind of adhere to for this conversation.
Yes.
So for the first one, all of us here are trying to approach some notion of what is true in terms of what we're analyzing. We're not here to make fun of each other, scream at each other, be emotional, whatever, but we're trying to figure out what the most true shit is, essentially, right?
Wow.
Number 1. Number 2,
Didn't expect
I
this from
personally
him.
think we should move through arguments point by point rather than like diatribing for 5 or 10 minutes so that the other time, because you don't want to start off a point where somebody already disagrees and then talk for another 5 or 10 minutes. And so if I'm saying something or Sneako's saying something or you guys saying something, if you disagree, just like, hey, let's talk about this thing before we rattle on a ton. Okay. Number 3, because I hear this accusation a lot. If anybody feels like there's a debate tactic in the room, call it out, and we've got the moderators here. If somebody feels like they're straw manning or appealing to emotion or false authority or whatever, so like, hey, hold on, I don't like that, point it out. Nobody should be leaving here and then in 2 weeks being like, there was a lot of debate tactics going on. Call it out if you see it, and we'll address it right here.
Yep.
Okay. Number 4, we've kind of already addressed this. So words have to have meaning. We're having these conversations. So even if we want to say that a feeling about a particular word is subjective or whatever, we all have to agree on that. Otherwise, we're going to be lost in the sauce if we're all like arguing, what does it mean to be alpha or beta? And we all have like 4 different definitions working. Okay. And then 2 more. 5 is trying to keep this as scientific as possible. So if somebody says like, well, there was a study in England with 33 million participants, and another guy's like, well, on Instagram, I saw 2 stories. Okay, let's try to keep it like as, I know you do a lot of scientific stuff. I know you've done a lot of reading. Sneako's very scientific here with his Quran. So let's try to keep it as based as possible. I'm sorry, I was kidding. My bad. Okay, and then final point. If some side feels like they're not being understood, or if they feel like their points are being misconstrued, ask the other side to just like state like, hey, what do you think I just said? Or hey, what do you think I think about this particular thing? And then the other side will try to restate the argument so that we're all on the same page. Okay, just roughly speaking, just to keep it. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
No,
we all cool? Okay.
Definitely, and we'll stay away from that homonyms and keep it as cordial as possible.
Yeah, but that's fun though.
So yeah, we'll start with.
And now we lost half of the viewers.
All right, so we'll start
How
with
many people are in the
what a high
chat?
value man is, and then also real quick,
That's
when
gotta
we're
be
making arguments,
wild.
whatever, I'll be timing you guys at least on the vasectomy part. We're going to cover that first.
Oh, sure.
But
There
let's
we go.
define
Should
what
we
a high
also
value man is.
mention how this started from last show or no?
No, they know.
Okay.
Yeah, trust me. There's 20,000 people. They know.
Okay.
Yeah. All
people.
right. So let's define high value man. Who wants to take the
people are
first
in
crack
the
at it
chat?
so
How many
everyone
people
at
are
the table
watching
can
us?
agree what it is?
28,000.
I'll go.
Jesus.
Guys, want me to go? So,
thought this
of
would
course,
be big.
everybody wants to like nail me on what's a high value man. Okay, so I could have said this on our last engagement here: is that a high value man is the man that other men want to be and other women want to fuck. That's
Okay.
straight out of my, I think it was my third book or my second book. Okay, that's too broad a definition, I think. So I could have just simply said that. People ask me all the time in the tweet or on Twitter and social media afterwards, like, why didn't you just simply say that? Okay. Well, problem with that is because once you get past that, it's a little bit too broad of a definition. So I did a little bit of homework on the way over here on the plane. And we generally go to
that
the female
shirt.
delusion calculator on our show. And you guys have used the female delusion calculator as well. So what is a high value man? Well, we've asked that question quite a bit from pretty much every girl that we've had on our show. Now, should it be defined by women? Maybe, maybe not. But there's a criteria there that forms the basis, I would say, like just the core principle of what is a high value man. So when we go through that, we go and we say, okay, well, how tall is that guy? How much money does that guy make? What is his? Is he obese? Is he like? And there's very specific details that go into that, and then through that we say, okay, well, that represents what, like, was it 0.02% of the population?
Yeah, I mean, if you're specific, we're talking about the GSS survey, or not the GSS.
No, CDC,
the CDC stuff,
and census and
Got it,
census stuff. So we always, and you guys do the same thing when we are looking to establish what is a high value man, at least as far as what women are looking for at that time. I'm not saying that there's another definition for guys as well. As I said, it's other men want to be, and other women want to have sex with.
So what parameters would you?
Well, exactly. Good question. Now, you guys, right around the first year of your show here, you had Kevin Samuel sitting right here, and one of the things he said is that the guy must make something like what, $10,000 a month, I believe is what it was.
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly. So that comes out to $120,000.
Top 10% of wage.
Can we agree that if you make $120,000 a year, would that make, like, as far as money is concerned, would that make you a high value guy?
I think it depends on where you are. Like if you're in Manhattan, I think that would be problematic. If you're in Wichita, Kansas, that's a lot of money.
Okay, so
I think I'll give a very broad definition. I think we can all agree on this. I think in the broadest sense, when we talk about men, we talk about what a high value man is, we think about what men are designed to do. I think that a high value man is somebody that can partition or acquire a lot of resources.
Okay.
In the broadest of senses. And that can be done in a lot of ways.
Do we want to put a specific number on those resources?
I think a lot is relative, so it's going to be more than your fellow guy.
Right,
so if you make $120,000 a year in Kansas, you're the fucking king.
Correct.
If you make $120,000 a year in San Francisco, your neighbor is probably a crackhead.
Yeah,
Right?
so
it just depends on
your argument last.
That's why it's so contextual when it comes to what it was discussing last time.
Activity. For me, high value man is going to be the guy who puts fitness first. He's going to have a job that's scalable, where he's doing something that he loves, and he's going to have his options on what woman that he can date.
That
Now,
covers it.
if you were to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at that and say, like, for instance, I like Grego Gallagher. I'm a
finances
big fan of
side.
How to Beast. Brandon Carter's a buddy of mine. Wes Watson, Goggins, what's his name? Jocko Willett. Those guys I consider to be high value men. The thing is, though, if
all their
Grego
books
Gallagher
over
is
there.
dating a woman with breast implants and fucking plastic surgery, another person who has different religious beliefs is going to be like, no, that's haram. That's
Chris, get
bad.
the fuck
So that's
out of
the thing.
the
It's the
camera.
subjectivity of it.
Sure. I think important to keep in mind is when we say value, we're implying some sort of exchange between multiple people. So like a moral man or a virtuous man might be way different than a high value man. We can all probably think of people that are very virtuous or moral.
Wouldn't someone
right?
virtuous who goes by the Quran then have a different definition? Like, for instance, you guys had an argument before about family creation. If several of those guys I just mentioned, they are not interested in family creation. They're interested in being the most attractive versions of themselves they can be. So you would have one person say, this is not a high value man. They would call that person a joke. And another guy would be like, yo, man, I have been used by women my whole life. I've been broke my whole fucking life. And I see this guy and he's fucking killing it. That's a high value man. The subjectivity of it is like something like when you...
I don't think it's as subjective as you're making it. I don't think religious people would really...
No, it's 1,000% subjective. Mike nailed it.
It's the wall because it doesn't go past just how much money you make. So,
yeah, like I think something that's really important.
So that's just one aspect.
Yeah,
of what high
the
value
subjectivity
man
part
is.
comes in, I think, when it comes to, if we use my broad definition of resource acquisition, the subjective part is what do you need to acquire resources? So, for instance, we say fitness, right? Fitness could be a proxy for acquiring resources. If you're hunting in the wilderness, a more fit guy can climb a tree, kill a bear, whatever. But in some societies, fitness isn't a proxy for how much money you make, right? I imagine that on average, there's probably a lot of really wealthy people that are not, I don't know how much Bill Gates can bench press, right? But for resource acquisition, he's very, very, very valuable. So, and then also I think we have to keep in mind, when I say high value, and I know Rollo likes to do this a lot, and so I'm going to try to play in this realm, I'm not trying to morally load any of these words. A high value man, so this question got asked, right?
You mean just supply and demand?
Yeah, so Epstein was a high value man,
Yeah, okay,
but obviously morally a horrible character,
course,
right?
okay.
And there's going to be a lot of high value people that have a lot of value in society in terms of how much resource they can demand, right? Or Genghis Khan.
Yeah, if you go through everything, different silo by silo, fitness, money, game, all that stuff, they could be different people.
One thing that we can all agree to, right, is I agree that it's immoral, right? A guy being high value, so it could be someone
Or amoral.
Amoral. It could be someone that's good or bad. But I would say this: respected by peers, has a skill set, he has a network of successful men around him, and we could say $100,000 per year, but we'll say, let's say if you make $100,000 per year and let's say like maybe a Kansas living type quality.
Sure. So those are all subjective, but we'd all probably agree in the West.
so
that'll get you probably.
So I would say
we'd agree on the vector.
That comes closer.
Yeah, sure.
We'd agree on the vector.
And you seem to be agreeing with Myron now, but you also said last time that Elon Musk is not a high value man. Ben Shapiro
From a particular context, no, he's not.
From what context?
Well, from the context that he is not married, is a high value man married.
That has nothing to do with being married or not.
Well, it does to the definition that.
Do you think other people think that being a high value man would have some correlation to being married and have kids?
I would say
some people would say because the tweet that I made, everybody had a very big problem with not focusing on family creation or not getting married. So is a high value man married?
People saw it as advice.
Like, I think for the purpose of this debate, we want to probably keep it as simple as possible, so that it isn't extremely nuanced definition. I think like if the person is married or not, should it matter? I think it should be on things that we can all mutually agree. Like,
or how about we can agree that a person of high value probably has the ability to get married and have a lot of children, but they might not necessarily.
If they choose not to do so, that's on them. And going back to the morality, I think that's a fantastic point. Even though someone like Epstein is a deplorable individual, on paper he had a network of net worth people. He had politicians in his pocket. He had quite a bit of money. He had a skill set.
He probably had a vasectomy too.
Yeah, probably.
Shout out to the CIA. Shout out to the CIA.
He did have a skill set. He did have a skill set, and he earned a good amount of money. So on paper, he's a high value guy. And I think that's something that we can all agree to. So we can. Fair enough. Okay, so we'll go off of respected by peers, has a skill set, network of other successful people around him. Morality doesn't matter, and we could say $100,000, if not more. And when we talk about $100,000, we don't mean $100,000, but we mean the ability to live in a certain way. Fair?
Cost of living adjustment.
Yeah, cost of living adjustment.
Consistently.
Can I take? Oh, you're probably going to say the same thing I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so but he also has to be useful.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes,
Utilities.
yes.
Okay.
So competency. Yeah.
Right. So there's a competency. So is a high value man educated?
Well, so competency again is going to be valued by society. So, for instance, I can change a light bulb, but I can't like fix a toilet. So my competency in the household is going to be relatively low. But as an entertainer, my competency is very high.
Very good electrician, poor plumber.
I might be left for dead in the woods. So competencies and same.
So again,
you can probably find like
who's doing the
exactly. You can find the best hunter possible in sub-Saharan Africa and bring him to the United States, and he's not going to do shit.
Yeah. So I think education has to be a component. I think if they're like a doctor,
education could be a way towards competency. There's lots of different ways to get competency, right?
Okay, cool. So is that fair with all you guys?
Yeah, competency.
So one more time. So just to define for the audience here, when we talk about high value guy, we're talking about someone that's respected by the peers, has a skill set, has competence, has a network of other successful men that respect them, and we'll say $100,000 per year, bare minimum, based on living a certain way. Not necessarily $100,000 per se, but $100K per year, just so you guys have a placeholder. Now we go into alpha male. I mean, I don't use this. We don't use this term that often, but I mean, just for the purpose
of space use it a lot.
Well, that's why we're talking about high value male, because that's kind of what has replaced alpha male over the years.
Yeah,
like when I first started writing, it was all about alpha, and then like right around 2017, 2018, everybody started using high value male.
So you guys want to just use HVM as the same?
Yeah, I'm gonna fight. I think Kevin Samuels made it popular for the most part.
So just HVM.
I'm probably gonna fight in particular on alpha male, but that's gonna be later. That because he wants to do the vasectomy talk first. So
okay, but how do you want to define alpha male then? So we have.
I don't know. I'll ask them later because that's a whole line of questioning.
It's like saying that the system is the matrix. It's just an interchangeable term, placeholder term.
Because I had a list of other things here. So it was like, as far as being useful and educate, I wanted to ask the education question. The other thing is, you got to be productive. Obviously, you got to be at least a productive member of society. Would that also be included in the conventional?
It is, but all of these things are proxies for value. So again, I'm very productive, but it's just because people like entertainment. In another society, I would have no production.
And that's where the respect comes in, because your productivity will align to some.
And then the other aspect of this is recognition. So people, when they see you, they understand that you are high value in some way. Like they go,
almost every human is wired for resources.
Exactly, but we're also plugging that person into a hierarchy.
Well, I think it depends on which hierarchy. Like he said before, he goes to a mechanic shop.
That's the subjective thing that we're. An
extreme example would be like Stephen Hawking, right? Who had motor neuron disorder, was relegated to a wheelchair, but was one of the smartest men who ever lived. That would be an example of someone who's super competent, but in other areas isn't competent. I would consider him a high value man, but you know he couldn't walk. So that's an interesting. That's what the subjectivity of it.
All right, cool.
No,
so
fair
I guess
enough,
alpha male will deal for later, and then hypergamy. How do you guys want to define that, just so we understand here? Because I mean, it's an ever-growing term. It used to be the practice of marrying up originally. So how do you guys want to do it?
So let me just see if I can define this. Okay. So the classic understanding, if you go and you look in the dictionary, you go to Wikipedia right now, the classic understanding of hypergamy, to the letter, is it was a term that was used by a sociologist. I want to say it was in the 1950s, and he was studying the caste system in India. In Hindu cultures, and how the tendency for women to marry from a lower caste to a higher caste. That was based primarily on the socioeconomic status of that person and that family and everything else. And that's the original idea came from. So it's based primarily on sort of like the provisioning, protection, and parental investment. It's dowries, it's marriage, it's the formalization of like a relationship. In the last, I would say 20 some odd years, we broadened the definition of hypergamy to include the alpha flex beta buck side of things. Okay, so there is the short-term sexual side of things, because women mate up, across, and up, as well as marry across and up. And as far as the definition is concerned, I've been trying to do this myself, right, is to expand the definition. But also people like Jordan Peterson have been using that expanded definition for probably going on another 5 or 6 years right now.
Okay. So
that would be my definition of it.
Can I?
Okay. So to boil it down, will we say the practice of marrying and/or dating up when it comes to socioeconomic steps?
The attempt.
Okay.
So this is what. So I'm going to come from an evolutionary standpoint. There is some algorithm that men, Homo sapien males, have to where they can see a woman and be like, that woman's attractive immediately. It's not something that's taught to them. They know immediately that woman's attractive.
She passes the boner test.
She passes exactly very quickly. There must be some correlating algorithm in a female psychology to determine the men she finds attractive or would consider having sex with, and the men she doesn't. Now that is going to be more complicated because for women there are so many more things. What we talk about in statistics, negative kurtosis. There are so many more things that women are attracted to about men. The book Why Women Have Sex by David Buss and Cindy Messon lists 237 reasons why women choose to have sex, whereas for men it's like 4. So because of that algorithm, that complicated evolutionary algorithm is hypergamy. That's what I would consider it. It is the way by which women sift which guy I like from which guy I don't like. It must exist just like it exists in men. So that's the way I would pose it.
All right, would it be fair to say it's sifting up though, right?
Yes,
it's not sifting, just sifting. It's sifting up.
Because her evolutionary imperative is to find the strongest son that she can. So that strongest son is going to deal with some competency or some physicality that man has that she's choosing him for.
All right, is that fair for you guys?
I accept the definition. Yeah.
You accept that definition? All right.
I agree.
So a quick little recap. So we went over defining the terms. We went over high value men. We say about $100,000 when it comes to cost of living of a certain way, respected by your peers, having a skill set network of successful individuals around you, competence, and it's amoral. So even someone like Jeff Epstein, even though he's a terrible person, he would be considered a high value man on paper, just so that we have.
Can you say Epstein?
Epstein, whatever. Epstein doesn't matter. He's one of them boys anyway. He's one of them boys. Who cares?
Listen, he faked his own death. He's fine.
And then
we don't know about that.
Hypergamy is the
allegedly
attempt to mate up or sifting up and having filters for men. And then alpha male will, I guess that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. So I guess we'll open up the discussion here, guys, with obviously the infamous tweet. Let's pull it up real quick, Chris. We got 28K y'all watching. So
like the video, man.
We'll probably have to kill the Facebook and Twitter stream here very soon. But come on over to
the guys. Doesn't that get you banned off of Twitter for Pep?
Yeah,
or Twitch for Pep?
Yeah, I think
okay.
so.
We're banned on Twitch anyway.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So this was Rollo's tweet. So I'm going to read it real quick for y'all. The quickest path to becoming a high value man. Number 1, do not get married. Number 2, avoid family creation. Number 3, vasectomy in your 20s. Number 4, live consistently. Number 5, eliminate all sedations. Number 6, learn game and networking. Number 7, play to your strengths and build wealth. And then number 8, resist easing up on your focus. So I guess I'll turn it to Rollo. Do you want to?
Sure. Okay. So I think we have already established the fact that to be a high value man, we have that sort of a convention, at least somewhat of a conventional definition of that right now. Now, how long would it take the average guy to achieve what we would in some way say this is what makes you a high value guy? It doesn't have to be the $120,000, but like the functional evaluated equivalent of that.
What everybody
I think it takes longer for men
for sure.
to get to reach maturity and to reach a point of where they get their maximum, they can maximize their potential.
Well, let's stick to the science because that's what he wanted. Number 1, we had Richard Reeves on, and he talked about boys being 1 or 2 years behind women as far as development is concerned, and also from the book Dataclysm, men reaching their sexual peak around or attractiveness peak around the age of 38 to 43, somewhere in that area. So that's science behind what you're saying. It would take longer for men.
So, but my point being is that, and I'll reiterate this one more time. The reason why I put this out there is because I watched you guys with Derek Lunenberg and I think it was Brandon Carter who was on here. And Brandon Carter, I'm really impressed with Brandon Carter. I think he's funny. He's a great guy. But his sort of outlook on life is to maximize his efficiency, his potential. So it's he doesn't go to the grocery store. He doesn't own a car. He doesn't, the things that would take him away from staying on his grind. I mean, to the extreme. And now this is an extreme that I would not do, clearly. Because I have a wife of 27 years, I have a daughter of 25 years. I am who I am. I do what I do. Right? So I have a car. Actually, I got 2 cars. I do have a car. So clearly, this is not about me. This is the most over the top, absurd, extreme example.
You also have a kid. I think that's what we all should point out.
Exactly.
So Brandon Carter.
Who's Brandon Carter?
The guy you're talking about.
You don't know Brandon
Carter? You know Brandon Carter? Really? You've been on the show.
No. He said he has a kid. He was just saying this.
He also has a kid. Yes, I understand.
Sorry.
But the idea is this: is that the most over the top, like what are you willing to sacrifice to get to the point so that you can get to that state of being a high value male, right? So, by the way, when I'm putting out the idea of vasectomy, okay, keep it coming because I love that one. But if there was a male birth control pill, I probably would have put that in there as well, because what that one section in there was meant to say is that beware of like when the sperm leaves your body, you lose all power over paternity and children and everything else. That's one of the things that really slows guys down. It's a hindrance to becoming to getting up to becoming a high value guy. So family creation. I'm not saying you should do these things, but if you want to get to the quickest way to doing those things, because it takes longer for men to mature into their peak potential, then these are the sacrifices that you're going to have to make to get to it as fast as you possibly can.
I feel like Sneako's probably going to take off from this because when I came into these spaces, so this is kind of a question that I had, and I think I fought with Fresh and Fit, I think, a lot on our first couple episodes, trying to figure out, like,
still do.
What are you guys advocating for? So when I would bring up, like, Andrew Tate tweets and Bugattis and all that shit, a lot of the times, these two clowns would tell me, they'd say, oh, this stuff's just a proxy for success. You know, you don't actually need the Bugatti. You need the ability to buy the Bugatti. You don't need to travel the world. You need to have freedom, you know, and all these things. So
it's lucky we're moderating.
Yeah, so it seems like, so it feels like it feels like, yeah, the goal initially wasn't to, like, be the richest motherfucker in the world. The goal was to have the freedom to basically do what you want.
Right.
And then I think the confusing part is it feels like there's this kind of schism happening right now, or it's already started to happen in the Red Pill community. We've got, like, the kind of trad people that are going in one direction, and then you've got, like, the grind set hustle culture that are going in the other direction. And it feels like the lightning point for this was your tweet, where it was like, okay, we're going to make it clear where we stand. Yeah. Get a fucking vasectomy, fuck family, and do this shit. And I think that it feels like the ultimate red pillar to you guys is what this is feeling of. The ultimate red pillar is a guy that grinds his fucking life away, and then at 35, he's like got fucking 15 million in the bank. He's fucked 50 girls, and now he's looking for like the best mom that he can find, who's like 20, 21 years old. He's gonna get with that girl, 0-1 body count at the most, maybe 1, 0 at the best, right? Virgin girl gets with her, has a family, and then boom, that's like his life. Whereas it feels like on the kind of traditional side, it's like, well, what if you were like 24 and found a really good woman at 22, and then you had a family at 25, and you followed your career, she stayed at home, took care of the kids, and you followed that more traditional route. And your tweet, I think, really showed the division of people in terms of how they felt about which of the two lifestyles people were actually aiming for.
You got it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And Sneako can...
Yeah, so what do you exactly do you believe in? Like, do you think that that is the life that you should follow? Because when you go to the red pill spaces, that's pretty much the end route, is because you're high value, you got a bunch of Lamborghinis, you're extremely rich. And we talk about competence when it comes to a high value man. Like, I didn't have a rich dad growing up, and that didn't really hinder his competence. And in fact, in a lot of ways, being a father will help you become more competent because other people are dependent and you're responsible for them. So that will make you become a full, capable man, which is, I think, the most important part of life. It's the most important part of life is not having a bunch of hoes, not fucking 50 girls, or getting the most amount of money possible, just hustle, grinding forever. The reason that we are here is to have a family and is to create. And so you see the red pill, and it's a response to feminism. You see this doomer way, like all these girls are hoes, all these girls on Instagram, they're all thoughts, whatever, they all belong to the streets. And so the reaction to that is the red pill, which is basically feminism, just male feminism. It's the same response. We make fun of girls who say that they want to freeze their eggs and wait till they're 35, and then men are giving the same advice to each other, saying, and I know you're not saying that's advice, but pretty much, like, if you look at the definition of advice, that's what that tweet was.
Yeah, so I think there's two things here. We specifically don't run around calling girls 304s, and like I actually have a problem with it, because I hear you sometimes talk about the audience there. We have to separate the audience, almost like Christ, Christianity, and the church. We have to separate the audience, because I agree with you. There's some shit that I see that people write on your streams as well, where I'm like, what the fuck is this, man? This is crazy, and I don't want to be associated with it. Red pill is not, and again, I'm red pill adjacent. Red pill is not something I get a union card for that I pay dues for. It's an ethereal thing that just sort of exists. Like, he calls it a praxeology. So the idea that, like, one of the things that's happened is every time, because he calls himself the godfather of it, when somebody does some stupid shit in the arena, then it's his fault, and then now we're gonna punch his book, because now the thing is, it's just a cloud, but then there's a book. Okay, now we have a physical thing to attack, and now Rollo has a tweet. Now we have a physical thing to attack, and so that's part of the issue, is that, like, now he's being held accountable for every. And I agree with you. Some of the things you hear are fucking idiotic,
over the top,
right? Because here's an example. When we go over the psychological studies that show that men don't have the same, they don't necessarily cheat more because they have more higher body count, but women do. They tend to be unhappy in a relationship. There's the Institute for Family Studies study that we refer to all the time. That's not a validation for cheating. We're not suggesting men cheat. You said that in the response thing, that I definitely do not think men should cheat, because in that whole situation, you're still lying. That is a lack of integrity, regardless. But do men have the ability to have more sexual partners early on in life? I was 20 years old. I'm 45 now. I was 20 years old at once, and there was a point in my life where I was going to UT Austin, and I wanted to have sex with attractive women, and I didn't think about anything else except doing that. That's how my brain worked. And later on, did it affect me negatively? I don't think it did. I just don't think it had the same thing. So I don't think it's a rationale for that belief. But the thing is, what happens is, anytime something bad happens or somebody says something stupid, it just comes back. It's like, now all red pillars are saying this all the time, and I just don't agree with that.
I understand what you're saying here. So first, let me clarify one thing. So I understand.
Should we define the red pill?
I don't think that's going to take a while.
Next week.
So I think the issue with Rollo's tweet, because for a lot of people it looks like advice, and for Rollo, he feels like it wasn't advice. I think the reality was, the disconnect is that that tweet was advice, but it was for advice to become a certain type of high value man that Rollo isn't saying everybody needs to become.
It said the quickest.
So, yeah, the quickest way to get to this part, it was the advice to do that, but he wasn't necessarily advising you to do that, right? It would be like him tweeting out, like, if you want to become the flattest person possible, jump off a cliff. And say, well, is that advice to jump off a cliff? Well, if you want to be the flattest person possible, but you don't have to do this thing because you don't have to.
It's like looking into the dictionary for advice.
There's a few people who got it almost immediately. Hotep Jesus got it immediately. He did stream it. Jedediah Bila, while you were on with Jedediah, she got it immediately. She's like, I know Rollo. I know he's not like this. I know this is a troll. This is she understood
that could be true, but then I also saw you.
She's familiar with my background.
I also saw you tweet the next day, like, you were kind of making fun of the TradCon way of life, saying that you want to be at your funeral bed with a bunch of kids around.
I was saying that you
Well, TradCons are hilarious and easy to trigger.
The idea
Case in
of
point.
the sort of pastoral kind of Norman Rockwell fantasy of dying on your bed with, like, as an old man, with surrounded by grandchildren and whatever, and like as if that's that, like, my funeral's going to beat your funeral,
right?
As if it's like
heavy metal in a car.
It's I put it this way: would you rather go out? Would you rather go out in a blaze of glory? Would you rather, was it better to burn out than fade away? What would you rather?
I don't see heavy metal in your car as a blaze of glory. That seems.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
but
your opinion.
here's the thing: is it's over the top
like
because I'm drawing attention to this fantasy of staying in your bed in an assisted living facility when 90% of people are never going to experience that. But it's a fantasy that we sell people so that we can sell them other ideologies.
I want to consider one other thing. You remember what he said earlier? He's like, one of the things you said was avoid family creation. And I read in that same tweet, what I would have said instead was be the one who chooses when and where you have kids, and don't let
control the birth. Control the birth. Wow, imagine that.
Well, I understand. Yeah, so I understand.
The extreme example of that is a vasectomy. I would not have said vasectomy, but guess what? My tweet would not have gone viral. I wish I could say vasectomy on Twitter all day and go fucking viral.
That's the only thing they focused on.
So I understand what you're saying now. So I would argue that you do pay dues to some extent to certain groups that you're a part of. So this is something that I noticed being relatively outside of groups myself. I kind of watch how people move through groups, and it seems like there very much is a kind of there are a lot of groups that exist in these internet communities, and you get benefits for being part of the group because you kind of inherit audiences and cross-pollination from other people. And then there are sometimes shitty parts of being in the group. So for instance, if somebody says or does something crazy, well, now you're kind of on the hook for it because this motherfucker in your union just said some wild shit, and now you kind of have to go to bat for him. I think that something that I wholeheartedly disagree with is this idea that you can say, like, well, you know, everybody in my comment section might say this, but I didn't say that, or I'm just making descriptions. Humans never just make descriptions. We never just observe things. The process of choosing to observe something already requires a decision to be made, right? When you go into a laboratory to study medicine, we're not just plugging random chemicals and random elements into a formula and see what happens. We're doing something to try to figure out, like, well, what is going to help make humans healthier? What's going to be a good medication for treating a disease or whatever? That's typically what we do. So when we're analyzing, like, the red pill, it's not just a praxeology, I think you called it, because even I think in your first book, you say, like, the goal is to make it so that your wife is not fucking the alpha, right? The reason why we observe things is so that we can take something useful from it and then go and do something with it. If I had an audience and I was making certain observations, and this has happened a lot, where I fight with a lot of black people, I notice my audience is getting a little bit racist. I fight with a lot of white people, I notice my audience is also getting a little racist. I fight with a bunch of women, they're starting to hate women, right? I notice that, like, if I do certain things, my audience definitely responds to certain ways, and your guys as well.
But you're not racist.
But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I think what matters is the impact you have on other people around you. Like, if I go every day and I see my wife and I'm like, hey, what's up? And it's not at the end of like 6 months, she's like, you haven't told me that you think I'm pretty like a single time. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, obviously you're pretty, my fucking wife. She's like, well, I need to hear it. I can't just say like, well, listen here, you stupid bitch. Obviously I think you're pretty. I don't have to say shit to you, motherfucker, right? I was like, okay, I have to understand how you feel. I got to tell you that I think you're beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I have to do that every day because that's part of like what really matters at the end of the day is the impact you have on another person.
Should you be held accountable for the racist comments in your from your streamers?
Like directly, like you said them, no. But if you're fostering a certain type of audience, I think as leaders, which whether or not we want to believe it, to some extent we are, that's how we're treated, right? We're paid. When somebody gives you, like, we'll say on one end, well, I don't influence my audience, and then in the next breath, somebody will be like, I'll give you X $1,000 to promote a product. Why are you promoting a product? Because if I tell you to buy it, I know you will, right? So obviously we have influence over our audience, and if our audience is all heading in a certain direction, I think it's important to be like, hold on, guys, I see you guys are saying a lot of this shit. Maybe we need to pull it back. So when you say things about like avoiding family creation, you know, you might say like, well, I don't actually mean to avoid it. I just need to choose when you have children. That might be the case, but broadly in the red pill speaking, I've seen this huge push where it's like, never fucking have kids, never get married, women are trying to steal your shit, child support, alimony, women are coming after you. It's like, okay, well, combine that with the vasectomy advice or the, you know, control your birthing advice, and it makes the relationship seem very adversarial, like you are trying to avoid having kids at all costs. That's what it feels like, I guess, from the outside. And I think that's what a lot of the followers of red pill people in comment sections, I think that's the message they would carry forward.
I think the issue is then who's responsible, because one of the issues, one thing we tried, Rollo and I tried, is our show, we try to have girls on there who have master's degrees. We try to have girls on there who do all different kinds of jobs. And when we do, we get the exact same response. When we had Miss Nevada on there, Miss Nevada, and they were like, yeah, she's a ran through fucking hoe. And I was like, what the fuck can we do?
We have women on there with masters.
What can we fucking do? And so the thing is, while I agree with you, no matter what we do, this audience still exists and they still talk about it.
Yeah, but why do they think that? What do they think that?
Again, but the thing is,
because they want something to complain about. They want something to bitch and moan about.
Yeah, but they could complain about anything, right? They're choosing to complain about these particular subjects,
I also don't think commenters are the normal in the middle of the distribution. I think commenters are on the extreme ends of the distribution, which is why I personally don't feel super responsible for some of the idiotic things that they say. So I do understand what you're saying. Are we fostering an echo chamber? We specifically aren't. Well, like our job, people
think we're soft on the girls because we don't. Because we're not like in their face too much because they're looking for blood. They're looking for something that's exhilarating. They're looking for Jerry Springer. You know.
Yeah, if you've watched Access Vegas, it's kind of tough to watch.
But and they're now going to.
It's fine though.
Because we talk about how important it is as leaders. You call yourself the Godfather of the Red Pill. Like you kind of own this ideology, and it's like you are the forefront of it. So
well, I think
that a good idea?
I think I put it, well, okay, first off, it was meant to provoke. That's number one. And it did. I got Matt Walsh, I got Ben Shapiro, I got Lauren Chan. We wouldn't even be talking about this right now.
I don't have any of those people retweeting my shit. That's the only thing I'm saying. Like I retweeted vasectomy 5 times on Twitter.
And we're still talking about it 2 weeks later. It was success. It was a
Can we add in what Twitter's used for, by the way? And you yourself said so as well. When you go viral, you got to say the most outlandish things. So Twitter.
I would say,
but if that was really the only reason that you did, then you wouldn't have gotten that debate and got so emotional about everything that happened. You would have started, you called us fucking idiots, you called us douche now. So if it was just in order to
because you weren't getting it, that's why. why.
Well, then you would have been rubbing your hands and be like, okay, I got the reaction I wanted. Here they are talking about it.
the emotional one at this
It's
stage.
not your fault, but to be fair, he did a reaction video where he said he was married for 50 years. I'm a cokehead, and Justin Waller pays for prostitutes.
Damn.
So that to be fair, there was a little ad hominem attack on us. You weren't part of it. But that's probably where some of this came from.
I would have taken that if I were you.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And then also the after hours that Sneako was on before that, he was going in real hard on Rollo anyways.
So going back, because so Sneako, you have some traditional conservative beliefs, so you disagree with the whole vasectomy part. What is the main, I guess, issue with it? Is it because of the lack of family creation? You think that's
I think he thinks I'm influencing people.
The two branching paths that I set up,
So
like, what are you guys advocating for? Like, do you think if a guy could do it, if a guy could be 25 at the head of his career, starting right there, about to go down his life, but also pair with a really good woman who he could have kids with, and then by the time he's in his 30s, he's already got like 7, 8, 9-year-old, a couple children with a good wife. Is that something you guys would push for, or do you think that men should stay as far the fuck away from that as possible and wait till they hit those prime years of being like 35?
So the answer would be somewhere in the middle. I think it's how over time, because I think social media has ruined things so much. If you know the whole thing where we talk about 33% of men having 0 sexual partners, that begins, that hockey stick starts at the advent of the Facebook app on the iPhone in 2008. You can see it just shoot right up to where it was 12% of men or 16% of men with 0 sexual partners, and it got up to 33. So the thing is, what's happened now is I would say it's statistically less viable, not unviable, but less viable for the 24-year-old to marry the 21-year-old and feel good about it, because by the time she's 31 and he's 30, she's 31 and he's 34, 35, the dynamics of his relationship are going to change. He's going to make more money. He's going to see the world differently. Now, I'm not advocating he leave his wife, but now those pressures existed where they didn't exist before 2008.
Sure. So so I would push back against this strongly. So here's something that I've noticed, okay? People ask me, so obviously I talk to a lot of women, I do my thing or whatever. When people ask me, like, what do you think is the best advice for like learning game? A lot of women. Okay. Honest to God, the best advice is when you're like 12 to 18, having friends that are girls. Talking to women, not being nervous around them, dating in high school.
You're not going to get any argument from this guy.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if you believe that. But honestly, that's the best time to do it. The second best time is now, right? But if you're not starting early and you're 25 and you've never even been shut down by a girl before, that's literally the scary. You could get a guy to climb the Empire State Building before asking a girl out.
So immersion from women, being around women
exactly. Yeah, and those warm spaces where dating and everything is possible, right? But the issue is when we push on this grind set shit so hard, and now you're getting a guy that's like 32. And he goes on a date with a girl, and he wants to talk about like white papers for crypto coins. How the fuck is this guy going to be in a spot in his life where he's ready to like find a woman, settle down with a family? Like, how does he turn that on?
The mindset guy doesn't mean you don't talk to women ever. Yes. It just means you're not looking to get married.
Well, one of those pieces of advice, like eliminate all sedations or whatever.
So what that means is like eliminate pornography, eliminate alcohol, eliminate prescription, opioids, whatever.
How do feminist women not fall under the category of sedations?
Feminist women.
Yeah. How do these women? How do hoes, for example, if you're talking about porn as a sedation, drugs, and everything like that? Can't you group hoes directly into the category of sedation?
You mean loose women or feminist women? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, because you're not looking for anything further than that. It's just a way to get some dopamine release and just have a little bit of fun. It's pretty much equivalent to playing a video game or watching porn. It's not anything, like maybe you learn a little bit about hoes, but you're not going to get anything out of it.
I would say the difference is that it's far more difficult for guys to use that as a sedation than it is to say play World of Warcraft all day long, or it's to go drinking.
I don't know, man. I push back on that too. I think we all know guys. I think we all know guys.
In the gamer set, I got it.
Well, no. I'm saying I think for the girl set, I think we all know guys have thrown their life away doing dumb girl shit. Whether you end up knocking somebody up, whether you get a crazy.
Half the reason shows like this exist is because
guys aren't
fucking
over across the border.
Yeah, but I think Sneako brings up a really good point. That when you say eliminate,
I think it's less of a less significant than say some other forms of sedation. So when I'm talking about sedation in the tweet itself, people I've said this a million times, is like if you want to actually get up and actually become something and be something better. This is like where I finally get into like something like a positivity hustle, right? It doesn't matter if you learn all this stuff, you read all my books, you do all this shit. None of it matters if you can't get your ass out of bed. If your shitty real life is worse than your online escape life, that's what I'm talking about. That's the sedation right there. So could it be that you're a sex addict? Yeah, it can. But I would say those guys are probably far less common than the guys who are smoking weed, prescription drugs, pornography,
I would argue
whatever
that it's actually a worse sedation just based on the fact that you're saying get a vasectomy, because the consequences are much worse than any of the other sedations.
You're sleeping around with a lot of weight.
I mean, the consequences are much worse, obviously, because you're advocating for getting a vasectomy, because you could have a kid with this girl. Right. It's way more expensive. It's a bigger time suck. You're going to be drinking. You're going to be in environments that aren't going to be uplifting you whatsoever. You're in clubs all the time. You're around women that you don't really like. You get angry because you have to deal with, like, Myron always jokes about how he's going bald doing the show all the time because these women will suck away your soul. And really, what's the outcome of it? A nut? Is that really, like, how many times did you go and fuck a girl and you're like, that was really worth the last 2 weeks of my time of texting back and forth, taking her out on dates, spending all this money, getting dressed, listening to her stupid conversation about astrology? Like, is that really something worth advocating for? How is that a better sedation than weed, than porn, than video games?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I love women. I love fucking hanging out with them. I don't have the same opinion or whatever.
I mean, I love alcohol, but I quit. Like, there's a lot of things.
I've never drank before. That's the other thing. I've never tried Coke, by the way. That's the other thing. So I'm with you.
You're missing out, okay?
But that's the thing. Like, sedations are great. I've done all the sedations. Yeah. I used to watch porn.
Here's the thing. Okay. If some people could say the gym is a sedation.
How does that further the argument?
I would rather say a guy going out there and getting himself in shape, learning how to dress, learning how to talk to women, putting some bass in his voice, and actually going out socializing with other people, getting over his fear of approaching women is a healthier sedation to me than pornography. That's just if we're going to rank sedations.
Well, and then I was going to say, like, other people are more addicted to a certain sedation than others are. If that is significant in your life and you're like, hey, you know what, I'm a sex addict, all I'm doing is going out and picking up random hoes all the time, and I've finally got it down to a science, and it becomes a problem, it's like affecting other aspects of your life, then yeah, I would say that that's a sedation that you need to like find, because it's an escape. I think sedations tend to be escapisms, is what I'm saying.
I think the contradiction that Sneako was pointing out is that, like, you're by definition you're removing from the table all the women you would want to court for marriage because you're avoiding family creation.
Nobody courts them anymore.
Well, when I say court, I mean like you're dating to get like married, right? So you're removing all those girls. So the only ones left are the 304s necessarily. If you're trying to focus on the grind set, but then also have fun with girls on the side. So then at that point, it seems like you're engaging in women the same way somebody would engage with like weed or whatever. You're not doing it for like.
You can date a woman you want to have kids with and not have kids with her. Like eventually have kids. I mean, at some point you will have kids.
So then the vasectomy thing doesn't make any sense.
And also, it would depend on the age too, because if you're like,
I think it was hyperbole what he was saying.
I think if like you're both in your early 20s and you're like, I don't think I want to have kids till I'm 35. That's a tough sell for a lot of women.
Unless you date someone who's younger.
Sneako, if there was a male form of birth control like Vasogel or something like that, and instead of saying vasectomy, and I said do this and take this, and it's not a permanent thing, you can always go back off of it.
No, because I think that's what we should be fighting when it comes to red pill and Tradcon. It's like it's a similar common enemy that's trying to sedate us in a way. Birth control for women, it messes up their hormones, it makes them extremely argumentative. They get weird, they get on different cycles. I don't advocate you to take these pills. I tell people all the time not to get the injection. Like, why would you go and listen to these pharmaceutical companies? Why would you let them win and go play into these games and pretty much just to chase dopamine?
My people behind the scenes.
Actually have like that's the point. That's the reason that sex exists, is to have children. Then you're completely removing the purpose of it, and then you're just chasing dopamine.
Can I chime in and just add something here real quick?
Moderators.
Yes, moderator.
Plan B.
What's up, moderator?
Moderators. 2 words. Plan B.
You know, here's the thing. I will. While I agree with you now today at 45, I will tell you, like, I wasn't a whore because nobody fucking liked me. But at 25, I wanted to have sex with pretty girls. That's what I did, and I don't feel like it ruined me. That's the only thing.
So what? Like, every day, but there's better things to do with your time and with that sexual energy.
Let me
you can focus that into becoming better.
Oh my God.
Do you not think at all though that period of time helped you understand women better?
I'm 24. I'm still
learning
now. Yeah.
So I will tell you at 45, and I used to work in nightlife, and I used to be a military officer, a bunch of different jobs. And I will tell you that like the value that I gained from having so many women in my life, not necessarily just for sex, but my ability to communicate with them now is 100. Like I do the red carpets for all these different parties, and I bring 100 girls to Bulgarian's house. Like that's what I do now because I'm good at doing that now. I look back at that and I say that was a good experience for me. I didn't necessarily have to have sex with all of them, but I do understand what you're saying. The problem is where I differ from you and maybe from Myron is like I don't hate being around them. I actually fucking really like being around some of them. They're fun, they're crazy, and they're just fun to be around. I just don't want to marry them. You understand what I'm saying? That's the difference for me. It's like Juicy J says, I still love these hoes. They're for everybody, but I love them anyway. That's the way I look at it. I mean, maybe it's just a little different.
You see them purely as entertainment, but I think it's better to see them.
I don't hate them either.
You're not really. It's better to see them as people.
That's how I see them exactly.
You're seeing them as entertainment.
No, he hosts bikini competition, so it definitely helps him in order to have a certain influence with girls.
He sounds like he enjoys the texting.
I fucking loved all of it.
Which I do too, right? It's fun to hang out with women.
I was in a stage of abundance, and also my lifestyle is a little different. It's big parties that we go to, huge events,
which is just a bigger, grander sedation. That's no different than really watching porn.
I've met some incredible. I wouldn't be sitting here right now had I not done that. It was Andrew Tate who reached out to me, introduced me to Justin Waller, who introduced me to him, and that's how I introduced Myron. So I don't see it that way. I see it as a goal. It ends to a means, and also the other thing is, and dude, Walt will tell you this too. Having beautiful women around you is one of the most incredible networking techniques that exists.
That's true.
There's an incredible book by Professor Ashley Mears at Boston University, where she talks about the guys who go to the Hamptons, and the ticket to get into every party at every Hamptons house with all the billionaires was to have girls. Right. So that's why
that's going to lead you to a fun life.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Adam 22 recently, and he has his own.
Oh my God!
I don't know if he was
Plug Talk.
Yeah, he has Plug Talk and everything like that. I was recently talking to him because he's been posting a lot of pictures of his daughter and stuff like that, and I always like react to them like that's dope. Like he clearly cares about being a good father. And I had this conversation with him, and he said that after being with 400 women doing all the show, like I asked him like, was it really worth it all? But he's like, there's nothing better than having kids. Yeah. And even that's coming from a guy who's clearly been a sex addict, who did all this stuff. He went on my stream and he was talking about all these crazy threesomes, and he's like very public about all this stuff. And he's saying there's nothing better than having a family and having a kid. Even this guy that's like slept with all the girls, like everybody in the chat, you watch like the top porn stars, he's been with them. And that does not compare to having a family. So yes, okay,
does he regret it? Does he regret it?
Yeah, because one thing could be better than something else, but it's still really fun, right?
It's not about regret. It's about advocating what's best
for
the
regret,
young audience and for the future generation. So is it better to advocate towards vasectomy so you go to damn Bulgarian parties, or better to advocate like become competent men, raise a good family, have strong children, and then your life is going to be, that's the best life.
I think it's a great life. I don't know if it's the only good life. I think there's a lot of people who just don't want to have children. I think we've seen it all the time, and they're happy. The thing is, if I were to look at it from the book of Leviticus or the book of Genesis, or if I were to look at it from the Quran, you're right. That's not a great life. But I think for other people, they can enjoy life without.
The only people that don't want to have kids have been psyops by the bigger agenda to believe that climate change and all these other external factors, that's the reason they don't want to have kids. It's all a lie. That's the reason we're here, is to procreate. That's all animals. You're like an evolutionary.
Let me ask you this. Let's take it to the next level. Let's say you're married. Okay, you found the one. You're with your girl, right? Is having sex with her without procreation, is that also an escape? Is that now a sedation? If you're not doing it to specifically have children, is it then a drug addiction?
Then it becomes a unity between a mother and a father.
So how is that not an escape, though?
Because it's still always
you're enjoying it, though, and it's not procreation.
Right, but there's always the risk of procreation. Like that's the point that you do it. There's always a possibility.
Would you use birth control with your wife if you didn't want to have kids?
No, I would never get my wife on birth control. Absolutely not.
No, I think condom. He's including condoms.
Yourself.
Any kind of birth control. Any
Vasogel, condom, whatever. Any kind of
sure, it is a form of escapism to some extent, but it's better than spending your time with a bunch of women that you don't respect or like, or even consider as really people.
Okay,
just
so
like
I'm not trying to put you on the spot because I hear this quite a bit these days. Is like the most extreme edits? I'm not saying like Islam, but like a lot of these really super orthodox Christian guys will say
they're
that
all Christians.
Any sex that is not for procreation is a drug addict. It's drug addiction, or it's haram. Right? Anytime you're doing something to feel good, it's a dopamine release. Any kind of is any dopamine good?
I think between a husband and wife, then it's not just dopamine. It's something that you're connecting and you're establishing a relationship that's bigger. If you just do it with these hoes, like you know that it's a one-time thing, you're thinking this dumb hoe, and then you're just gonna kick her out. Like you're already thinking.
But we're talking about sedation.
Unquantifiable.
Yeah, but that's a sedation. That's a different level. Like that's not a waste of time sedation. You're bonding with the partner. There's something that you're gonna create a future with this person. You're gonna see her the next day.
Maybe another way to say it is you're of one flesh now, like what it says in the Bible. And
I think to steal Sneako's point here, and I understand what he's saying. I think one of the problems that we've run into in society, and I think even Red Pill hits on this a little bit, is we become a society that has like taken every pleasure and reduced it down to its instantaneous like click button to get it, basically, right? So instead of reading a book, we browse TikTok. Instead of going to the theater and actually watching a movie, we're at home with a movie playing, Subway servers in the background, and like a game going at the same time, right? We have no ability to have attention or focus on anything. We've taken all of our pleasure centers and we've short-circuited them into the most immediate gratifying way possible. Now, that doesn't mean that all of those pleasure centers are necessarily bad. And I think from a religious perspective, when you look at how society is structured, ultimately society is kind of stemming from the structure of mother, father, children. And anything that's done in service of the maintenance of that structure is necessarily a good thing. So when you like ask Sneako, like, well, is it sedation to fuck your wife? Well, no, because sex there, even though that's the same it's the same act as having sex with a stranger, that's being done in service of unifying and strengthening the bond between father and mother that's ultimately serving as the foundation for all of society. Much the same way that nobody's going to give me props if I go to the park and play with random kids. But if I go to the park and play with my son, people are like, oh, well, that's a really good thing to do.
You play with random kids, you might go to jail.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, but you're still like, you're either playing with kids or you're playing with your son, right? But it's important to do with your family because you're doing it in service of that bond of like father-son and building the family. Same thing with sex between a mother and father. Sex between a mother and father is not the same thing as random sex because that's being done in service of fortifying this institution that ultimately all of society is built upon.
Yeah,
so I think that's a difference.
The Red Pill advice is 50 women. So the whole purpose is just to get
Myron specific advice.
Okay, but like one of the forefronts of the Red Pill, just get this done. It's like getting a notch on your belt. You're going through the motion specifically. It's like doing reps, and you're treating a person like you're just getting reps done.
Yeah,
that's not that is dopamine release in its purest form. You're not trying to establish anything. The whole point is to never see her.
Myron, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think Myron's not saying that for dopamine release. He's saying that for experience, so that you don't get used by women. I think one of the things, the whole point.
Well, that's not equating that sex to being a waste of time.
I think if you gain some experience, and you had made the point before, it's like, oh, is this going to you're going to fuck this girl and be able to tell if she's a good mom? No, but what you're going to be able to do is see the red flags before they come. You go on a date with a girl you find really attractive, and she will not shut up about her ex. That's probably a good red flag. But after you've done this a few times, doesn't have to be 50 times, but it's after you've done this a few times, you start to see these red flags before they occur, and you're smarter, and you can help your friends out with those things. That's the only reason why I would say that.
A little bit, although I would fight on some of that advice because, like, you can, and like you said something earlier about how the casual dating and shit that you did in your early years probably helped you with dating later on. Yeah. It sounds like, based on what I hear you say, that's probably true for you. But I think we can both agree there are ways that you can do it that wouldn't help you at all, right? If you go onto Tinder, you find a girl, you dinner, fuck her, never talk to her again, you could do that 50 times and arguably have less experience than a guy that's dated one woman for 7 years, right? Just because you've never even learned. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So like fucking 50 women could give you a lot of insight potentially into the female psyche, I guess, if you actually spend any time with them and date them. But if it's literally just one night stand, like, I don't know if you really learned anything, right?
Well, see, here's the thing, though. The average North American male has had, seven sexual partners, six sexual partners? 7 to 9, yeah. So for him to say 50, I think that sort of is going to include that necessary experience, right? And we can debate on how worthy that experience is. I will tell you at 45, I've learned a lot about women from being around women. Not necessarily just having sex with them.
I want to address like your point as well, because I hear what you're saying, because a lot of people will take the quote unquote red pill to its most logical extreme, right? So just fuck a bunch of girls. That's all it's about, right? When my very first book, there's 6 chapters in there. It's called Plate Theory. Okay. Each one of those, like when we're spinning plates, it's like you're dating non-exclusively. And if you read those rather than just listen to what's going on online, you'll notice that the last chapter in there is transitioning out of the plate spinning, the dating non-exclusively, into something that is more monogamous at that point. But that gets thrown to the wayside because nobody reads anymore, obviously. But the fact of the matter is I think that this another thing that comes back on me is people say, well, Rollo just says fuck anything on 2 legs. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, in the book itself, I say, you know what? Just because you're spinning plates doesn't mean you're fucking every single one of those plates. There are possibilities. For some of them, maybe you are. For some of them, maybe you're not. But you're dating non-exclusively. And so the idea behind that is not to get your notch count up or not to validate your ego for whatever reason. It's so that you understand so you know what you want in a woman, and so you know what you don't want in a woman. Whether you fuck that woman in the first place is irrelevant. Some guys are going to do that, obviously. But I think the idea, and I've been struggling with this since the very early days when I was a moderator on the SoSwap boards, is that I think a lot of people think that it's conditioning guys or it's teaching guys to be like jerks, to be like womanizing sons of bitches. And I would say that most guys who come into the red pill are not looking to be like players. They're not looking to be guys who want to go and just like bang up as many women as they possibly can.
Commenters.
Maybe that's true. But the fact is that most of the guys, at least in my experience from working with these guys in the last 20 years, they want one chick. They want to actually kiss a girl. They're like 24, 25, in some cases 30 years old, and they've never gotten anywhere. They've never had any intimacy, never had any kind of affection. And I'm not like, sex is even out of the question. Just to have a girlfriend is why they're like, just what they have been doing up to this point hasn't been working for them. So that's why they come in and they find this. Are there guys who can use the red pill so that they can go and spin plates and they can get a rotation? Absolutely. Are there guys who can use the red pill to find a wife? Absolutely. That's the beauty of the red pill. It's like I said before, it's like fire. You can use it to cook your food, and you can use it to heat your home, or you can use it to set your house on fire and set your neighbor's house on fire. It just depends on the application.
But you're acting like it's this really deep philosophy or praxeology. Like, is it really that complicated? Like, what?
Yes.
If you could just describe
yes,
it,
absolutely, it is that complicated.
How is it that complicated?
Or actually, or even on the back of that, how does it work then?
Sneako's
you
just so
guys, I'm grouping all together. Maybe
He's
it's
on a
just
higher plane.
Maybe it's Myron.
I'm moderating.
Yeah, because it seems like then, because I would personally, I feel like I would consider the ultimate success red pill story then would be somebody like Ben Shapiro. But it feels like you guys really disagree. So how do you reconcile those things? Because he's somebody who found a wife early on, got married, has a business, has a family. Seems like he's doing everything right, unless we really are saying, but he didn't fuck enough women. So how do you reconcile
No. So if it works out for him, so it's like this, what was it, Rich Cooper, who says, hey, don't ever date a single mother, right? If someone comes up to Rich Cooper and is like, hey, listen, I know what your advice was, but I just want to let you know, I'm dating a single mom, and it's worked out for me. We've been together for 10 years. Rich Cooper's not going to go, fuck you, stupid motherfucker. Why didn't you listen to me? He's going to go, hey, congrats, man. It worked out for you. That's how I would look at Ben Shapiro. Marrying the first woman you had sex with is not unviable, but it's slightly, it's out there 2 standard deviations away from the norm. Today, not in 1850, that was the norm. Today, I think it's difficult. Now, here's the thing: if we look at Steven Crowder's situation, what I'll say about this, I think Steven Crowder is. I disagree with him. I think he is a high status man. The difference, the difference with Steven Crowder is, I would say that most of us in here and most of this audience, realizing you got married in the state of Texas, made that much money, and didn't sign a prenup. That was not a smart move on his part. In fact, I would even go so far, and you might disagree with me on this, if he had signed a prenup, she wouldn't be filing for divorce.
That never would have been occurred to them, though, because they're both like from evangelical cultures, and they're both like virgins, and they're like in their early
Sure, but then again, look at the divergence here from the traditional versus the red pill, right? Where the red pill is like, you need to be going into this marriage, waiting for it to fail, get that prenup, do all this like,
it's understanding what the culture is right now.
I mean, like, I would argue, Sneako is our Muslim expert, I won't touch your book, sorry. But like, wouldn't you argue that going into marriage is literally, again, like the union of flesh, you know, till death do us part, etc. That if you're going in with a prenup, you're basically like doing what you're
through the church.
You wouldn't go in with a prenup?
Well, I personally wouldn't. I don't know if I would suggest that for other people, but I'm just pointing out the difference between like the trad versus the red pill. There's this huge schism right now in terms of advice.
So you remember the science thing. So if 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women, then it would de-incentivize women to get a divorce if there was a prenup. That's just scientifically the way I'm looking at it. Nobody gets into, again, 38% of businesses stay in business after 5 years, something like that. Nobody starts a business, but hey man, 38% chance we're going to fucking make it. But if you get married, hey, you know what? There's a 53% chance that we're going to get divorced. Nobody says that. Everyone has. So, but why not protect ourselves? I have home insurance, but I don't intend on burning down my house, and I have car insurance, but I don't intend on totaling my car. I just don't think. I think you can still be prepared. Maybe this is the military officer in me. All we do is practice emergency procedures, but we don't intend on crashing. And so that's why I would do that.
I mean, I agree with you insofar as business and insurance goes. It feels a little bit different. Feels a little bit different when you're talking about marriage, because it's not necessarily just a financial union. It is realistically part of it is a financial union.
That's the origin. The origin of marriage was a financial union.
Well. Probably, but it also had to do with like family creation, everything too, right? Heavily played into it. Probably more important even than the financial union was the family creation part. It just, again, it feels like I'm feeling the rift between like date to find a wife to create a family versus date. This 3 or 4 might divorce you, get a prenup, get ready to, she's 15 years younger than you. It seems like there's that big divergence of qualities around the marriage part. I'm curious for both of you, you guys can answer. Like Sneako, what is like your ideal path in life? If you could be like striving towards an ideal, when does the man get married and have a family? And then you two, like when do you think a man should get married and have a family in general, knowing that there's going to be exceptions, but in the Western world.
I would say late 20s to early 30s, and a part of the reason why I reverted to Islam is I see it as the only logical way to get around the boredom aspect that the Red Bull talks about, because men always get bored. Men always want variety.
If Tate was a Catholic, that would be a holy Bible at his feet or at his hands.
That you're going to go never see him again, and you're just using for a body count. If you have multiple wives and you love them equally and you're providing for them and they're getting something out of it, and then you get past that variety problem that a lot of guys have, and you also the women are going to act more in your favor if they're in a sense competing with one another to make sure that they're providing for the husband.
How do you handle this legally? I mean, bigamy is.
I would not get married legally. I don't recommend anybody in the West get married. I think we've seen it fail over and over again. I just don't think. But I would get
family
married.
creation without legal marriage.
But you can get married religiously.
Yeah,
you can have the ceremony. I think a lot of girls would like to have the ceremony. They want to get the dress with the pictures in the ring, but they don't need to have the actual contract. And I think for a lot of guys that if they would just logically explain that to their woman, they would have to agree. Just look at all the failed marriages. You look at the divorce rate.
Do you guys agree with that? When guys should get married? To summarize,
I've already actually put that in my book. So actually, it's like don't even consider monogamy until you're 30 years old.
Yeah, at least 30, man. I would say at least 30.
So y'all are in agreement about when they should get married. I guess they might say get expensive plates in the process. So you're saying minimize that.
I mean, I would argue from a trad spot. I think you would argue for earlier than 30, right? Because you want to have children to have fun with when you're in your vibrant stages in life. Like having a teenager.
We're pretty vibrant.
Mid to late 20s, early 30s. It depends for a lot of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we say 30s. Like, if you have a kid when you're like... No, I understand. But like when you have a kid when you're like 35, 36, and now they're in their teenagers years, and you're like in your 50s, right? It's not necessarily the same type of vibe as you have a kid...
Clarify, so Sneako, you're against guys spinning plates and or having premarital sex with girls prior to, obviously... the relationship.
I just see it as a waste of time to just be spending your time with hoes and saying that that's not a sedation. Like that's the one component that the red pill's missing, is that they see it as experiences. You're getting better. It's part of being a high value man, is having a huge body count. I see that as actually a worse sedation than porn, the video games, and all this other thing, because not only is it just going to waste your time, but the risk factor is extremely high, and the solution that is offered to become this high value man that the Ripple talks about is getting a vasectomy, which is not even the quickest solution, because
again, hyperbole, but
yes, hyperbole. Right. He was so the thing is, you guys remember the story of the Buddha, right? He goes off and he's a prince, he's an Indian prince, and he's never seen a dead person, he's never seen a sick person.
I like how they're just dismissing that at this point, and it's like, keep coming back to it, nobody cares.
The lotus tree, and he tells everyone to get rid of all of your personal possessions and all this kind of stuff, but it's really easy to say that when he had a fucking harem before he said it. When you interviewed Bilzerian, he's like, oh, having sex with all these girls isn't that big of a deal. It's really easy to say that after you had sex with all those girls. If we say this, Sneako, to other dudes, they're going to sit there and listen to us and be like, hey, let me fuck these girls real quick first, and then let me learn this lesson on my own. That's the problem.
Yeah, men learn from experience.
For sure. I will tell you, you are 100% right. It was a sedation for me, and I fucking enjoyed it. I'll tell you that also. So that's the problem. The thing is, while we say that, and I agree with what you're saying, and I think you're setting a good example, the problem is men are still men. Men are always going to be more interested in casual sex than women are. The 37 culture study done by Dr. David Bussin, all 37 cultures, men were more interested in casual sex than women are.
That's true. But then you have to think about, like, because we all have a platform, like, what's the best advice to give out to the masses? Because if you're saying
statistics is the best advice. The truth is the only thing that I care about. I don't amoral, like you said before, because the problem is that the Overton window consistently shifts to the left, and no matter how much I, as a Christian, want it to go back to the right, I know that unless, other than I can think of maybe Afghanistan recently in 1979 in Iran, I can't think of a single society that shifted back to the right in the last 50 years.
But then you're creating a bunch of men that are victims of that system and that are just playing parts of this leftist system instead of trying to create people.
I don't think it's leftist, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I think you also have to be careful. Our advice can't be statistics, because I feel like one of the things you argue against as red pillars is just being a statistic, right? Like, you could argue if you're listening to your man should kill yourself, because statistically speaking, men kill themselves more than women, but that's not a good argument, right? Like, in some senses,
prescription.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want to just be a statistic, right? Because statistically speaking, what percentage of marriages end in divorce, what percentage of women initiate divorce, you want to try to find a way to rise above, right?
I guess maybe a better way would be like, here's my prescription, but they come with the statistics, and this is the reason why. And none of them are based on my feelings. They're always going to be based on other statistics. So I would say, for instance, if I would say 78% of divorces are initiated by women, that would be my prescription would then be to get a prenup. But it's based on that statistic.
Yeah, for sure. But it could also be like, well, here are the most common reasons for divorce. Try to remedy these before they become an issue.
That's another great statistic, though. You're reading a statistic for a prescription.
But the feeling is, what do we express at the end of the day, right? It's the difference between history and historiography, right? If we want to tell the story of World War II, we're not going to talk about every single soldier in the war. We're going to focus on, the leaders. We're going to focus on the big battles. Same thing with statistics, right? It's what is it? Statistics don't lie, but liars use statistics. You can arguably use statistics to tell almost any kind of story you want, depending on how you massage your numbers and depending on what side you present. But it's our choice to choose what we want to present to the people, which is what we tell them to do. Also, one thing I would say on the marriage stuff, because I hear this a lot. I don't know how many of you guys talk about this or get into this a lot. You have to be really careful with the live with a woman but never get married. One, because some states have something called common law marriage, which I hope most of you guys are familiar with, right?
Yeah.
So you might not think you're married.
I don't believe has it, but yes.
Yeah.
7 years now.
Texas doesn't. Right.
Be very careful with that, because you might find you're getting a divorce notice from a woman you never agreed to marry. So one, be careful with the common law thing, and then two, I do believe that one of the reasons, we don't have to get too deep into the divorce stuff because that might come later, but one of the reasons women probably want some sort of like formal contract is because, while there might be some love and children and all of that, there is also money and career being left on the table too, depending on the arrangement. If you're telling a woman like, hey, we're going to fuck, we're going to have kids, and I love you and I love that and I love our family, you're going to stay here and take care of the kids while I go and I continue my career. When we split, if we get divorced in 10 years, I didn't lose shit financially because my career has been fine. I've been working the entire time, and now you're stuck being a full-time caregiver. You might have given up your career to do it. So I think it's reasonable for the woman to say, much the same that a man might say, I want a prenup, just because we get divorced and you're taking half my shit. The woman could also be like, okay, I understand that, but if we end up getting divorced and I'm throwing away a decade of my life to take care of your fucking children, our children, I want some kind of financial assurance. So I think that's fair.
And you're aware that certain prenups are thrown out exactly for the reason
depending on how egregious they are, or the state of the people writing them, or both sides had representation. There's a lot of some prenups do get thrown out, but not all of them, right? Yeah.
Okay, real quick. This has been great. I'm gonna read some of these chats real quick.
Yeah, if there's been a
so guys, come on over to YouTube right now.
Okay.
Like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and also all the
just
guys
got
links
live
below.
right
Follow Destiny on YouTube. Check out Sneako on Rumble. Check out Mike Sartain and the Access Vegas podcast on his channel, as well as Rollo Tomassi on the Rational Mail. I'm reading only $100 super chats and up, guys, so that I can make sure that we keep this thing nice and succinct. We got Platinum Elite going.
Okay, unless there's like a really good chat or something, then I'll just, come through and all that stuff anyways. But, yeah, there's the 4 points that I heard here earlier at a bunch of different times anyways. Okay, what is he leaving?
The married guy. Do they have any mosques in Las Vegas?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, man.
Let's go.
Yeah. You're in. You're on.
This guy's Sneako,
Okay,
man.
Have fun with your new friend, your closer friend. Okay? Bye, buddy.
El Sneako.
Got some distractions.
No more plan Bs, bro.
Yeah. The Red Pill has flaws, but
Oh, all right. Because I thought I heard that, yeah, he was doing a stream with Aiden Ross where they were going to go paint their fucking fingernails or some shit like that. But actually, yeah, all the critiques were about Sneako anyways. Yeah, because he came up in the first piece of Red Pill content that he ever cited that he was listening to was Patrice O'Neal's Black Phillip show, which was actually the first place that I, heard any of these types of ideas as well. And it's funny because he was also talking about, audience descriptions and understanding. That was Destiny point as well. But him bringing up that, things need to be a description. Everything's going to be a description. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. Some things can just simply be, here's the way that it is. It's not just advice on how to live your life. Okay, let's see. I might go back to this.
Last one?
Okay.
Oh, last one. Okay.
33K watching and only 8K likes. Let's get 20K likes to support the panel.
So
yeah,
the ANC plugs in the back, man.
Damn.
Like the video, like the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Okay, we're caught up. All right, cool. So we were talking about the topic of divorce. Go ahead.
Do you want to start with that?
No, I was.
As far as like not living with a woman, I think is the main contention.
Well, that's that's Iron Rule Tomassi number 4.
You
it's
say
like
don't live with a woman, and you disagree.
No, I'm
with
saying
that,
don't
correct?
live with the woman unless you plan to marry her within the next 6 months. Because what happens, and the reason why I put that in the book in the first place is because there's a rash of guys who just get together and they want to live with their wives or their girlfriends, right? In that situation, they think it's great. We'll get rent paid. And then I'll have, sex with the utilities, I'll have hot and cold running water and I'll get laid when I want to. And what happens is these guys will go and put their name on a lease with that woman. And then things didn't work out for them. But the woman, her impression is, well, he wouldn't be signing this lease for a full year unless he was really, really serious about me. Mm-hmm. And so essentially you lose all leverage. You lose all the urgency. You lose the nature of the sex goes down. The frequency of sex goes down. That's actually that's why I made that a rule. So,
do you disagree with that? Living with a woman?
Yeah, completely. I don't know how much you want to go on this topic.
Go ahead. Please take it away.
I don't know how that relates to divorce though.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like living, if for no other reason, I think living with somebody is nice because splitting bills is really nice. You brought up something interesting. I'm not familiar with this research directly, but I'm going to extrapolate this one I do know. You mentioned that around 2008, when apps and iPhones
Chris, can
and
you
all this
pull that
stuff.
up? It's really easy to find. It's the GSS survey. It's in the University of Chicago, I think. Did it? Do you remember who did that? The one that shows that 33% of men with zero sexual partners.
And then, by the way, that's we keep using that over and over again. I see Adam Sosnick quote this all the time, but it's there's so many other data points in that survey.
This is something that I'm going to bring up because and you guys are all old enough to remember something else really big happened in 2007, 2008.
The subprime mortgage crisis.
Holy fuck. And one of the biggest indicators for men being able to get out and get married and have sex and everything is having your own place.
Yeah.
And our ability to work.
But also losing your finances is also another big indication or predicate to getting divorced.
Housing became completely fucking unaffordable. In 2007, buying a house from that point on became very, very, very difficult for the next few years. So it wouldn't surprise me if virginity rates or not, it's not virginity actually, but not having a sexual partner rates probably grossly increased for that year because everybody was stuck at home.
So really hard to fuck. While I agree that may be a part in the beginning, if you look at the scale, it starts in 08 and it ends in 18.
Sure.
At 18, it gets up to almost 30%. So or from 2015 to 2018, I don't think that has anything anything to do with the subprime mortgage crisis. I think it has way more to do with the phone and specifically Dunbar's number. What's happened is these people now have unlimited options, whereas their brain was developed through evolution for 150 people. Now they have options to everyone and everything they can see. They message Drake. Drake messages them back. They fuck Drake, and now the girl thinks that Drake is the baseline for what she can date. And now the next guy who's alpha widowed after that has to deal with that. And I know it may seem like it's anecdotal. I just see this hundreds of times where girls will say, yeah, I was dating so-so and an NBA player. And you've probably seen this too. And you're like, no, you fucked him once. You're not dating him. I know his wife. You got to fuck a couple of times. Yeah. And it skews the data set so much to where you have women and they come on these shows and they're like, hey, I'm a 10 and this is what I deserve. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. I get it that you fucked an NBA player, but like now you've confused yourself into thinking like this is what the world is going to be like for you. Social media led to that, and I think it's specifically Dunbar's number.
Can I clear, because I know where you're going to go with this. So before you get there, because I'm going to hit on you for 1 second here, because this was you.
Damn.
So
he's coming for the Dubai number.
That 30%. So like, because I want to clarify this, because I think this will just save us some time here. So like, you were on the show here, and you guys were having this back and forth about like what's the percentage of college co-eds are getting flown out to yacht parties with Drake or NBA players and stuff like that. And you guys said 30%. I'm like, oh god, no, it's not 30%. But
they have the chance.
It's not. It's not who's actually being flown out there. It's the perception that those girls saw that other bitch got flown out there, and so the possibility exists, at least in that woman's sort of hindbrain, that could happen to her, and so therefore the perception of it affects that local sexual marketplace, because if the girl thinks that might happen, she's gonna like put off these other guys, like real guys, on the off chance that maybe somebody is going to fly her out somewhere else. So, and by the way, that's just one isolated incident. So when we're talking about perception online, like the one thing you want to talk about, like 2008 up to where we're at
Chris,
right now, it's the perception of opportunity. It's the perception of abundance. It's the perception of a overinflated sexual market value as a result of seeing all these women who like women think are comparable to them, and they're getting that treatment. So the possibility exists that they could get it too. Hopefully that shortens things up a little
so
bit.
I understand this theory, but I disagree with it completely. But I don't know if we want to go, because I think we're going to get back into this later. Do we have a particular topic we want to talk about, or do you want to talk about dual mating preferences?
We can hit. Yeah,
I think it's a good segue.
I think that ends the vasectomy discussion right there.
There's no refuting that. That just absolutely shut down.
Going there. But okay, we could go into dual mating strategy, and in this case, is going to be the classic alpha fucks, beta bucks, the dual mating strategy of women that basically,
I haven't seen a Destiny W tonight,
with that really tall, nice looking guy, right, the Chad, and then they go ahead and get with the other guy for his resources, the beta bucks.
Can I reset this from a scientific standpoint? So this is in The Evolution of a Desire by Dr. David Buss. In that original copy, it's called the dual mating strategy. Later on, when he writes the book When Men Behave Badly, he changes his opinion to what's called a mate switching strategy. So, and the reason why he does that is because they do a survey and find out that 83% of women who cheat on their husbands fall in love with their affair partners. It is below 30% for men. So something that statistically different would show that when women cheat, it is to find a new head coach. When men cheat, it's to rearrange the roster. So that's essentially what he's saying with that whole thing. Now, Rollo and I actually disagree on this a little bit. I believe more in the mate switching strategy. He has mentioned before about the dual mating strategy. The thing is, I don't think it's 100% one way or the other.
They can coexist.
There's too many women that I know that are absolutely have a sugar daddy while fucking Brock the bartender at the same time. And so, again, it's just anecdotal. It's not statistic. But I think both of them exist. Whether or not it's 85-15 or 50-50, I'm not really sure.
Okay, this is going to be a really important center point for this discussion, because in my opinion, almost all of Rollo's praxology is going to be built off of this alpha fucks, beta bucks idea. That a ton of stuff, hypergamy is built off of it, the way the relationships work are built off of it, what men and women are after, the dual sexual strategy. So you guys are not in congruence with how you feel on that? You disagree?
The difference is, so we'll just say Alex the alpha and Bobby the beta. She's dating Bobby the beta. Now, the question is, in both strategies, she fucks Alex the alpha. But in one of them, she fucks him to leave because she's dissatisfied with Bobby the beta, and in the other one she fucks Alex the alpha to get his genetics and stays with Bobby the beta.
Sure. So the underlying question then is, do you believe that women biologically are employing the dual sexual strategy?
Subconsciously, yes, because men do this. Again, the converse for men would be the 40-year-old guy, 50-year-old guy who goes through midlife crisis. I don't know if you've seen these studies. When women go through menopause, that's when men go buy the Ferrari. They've shown this, like, men can actually sense when women go through menopause, and so that would be the same. That would be the equivalent for men. So yes, do I think women do it? I think
they're always looking for protection. Yeah.
It's strictly because of their evolution.
Okay.
And Michael?
Go ahead.
Oh, here's the
There it is.
stats.
Yeah, you see from 2008 to 2018, it shoots up to 28% of men. Chris Williamson had a comment before. He thought it was in the 40s now. He thinks that number has gotten up even higher. So that ended at 2018. But that's a pretty statistically viable number right there to go from 16% to 28% in the course of 20 years.
And I should also point out that that's one demographic cohort, the 18 to 30. If you go beyond that, it still tracks. It's just not as significant.
Yeah, I'm curious how much that correlates to housing prices. Because I know that like housing has become like increasingly unaffordable, and a lot of the issues for people
not having a place helps you not get laid. 100%, yes.
And married, it's a very big success indicator for a successful marriage as well. So okay, into the dual mating hypothesis. So firstly, I want to ask, what is an alpha male to you guys?
Oh,
right. So, would you
Quran.
admit, like when we talk about, and we're going to start from the taxonomy here: elephant, bull, seals, tigers, lions,
silverback
gorillas. In those cases, would you admit that there is an alpha male, at least in those in biology in those cases?
Yes.
Again, it's okay. So we understand that there is something. So here's where the confusion comes. If I'm having my birthday party, I've noticed whenever I have my birthday party, I get more attention from my friends and from women in general because they see other women paying attention to me. In that moment, contextually, I am alpha. When we leave that and we go into a club to watch Calvin Harris, all the girls now stop paying attention to me. They see Calvin Harris go on stage. He is now contextually alpha. That's how I define alpha male. I don't know if you.
Wait, let me catch that. What was the definition there? Like, what is? And I'm not trying to get you on like, what is a? Give me 16 words. Like in general, like what is an alpha male? Actually, I'll give you my perspective. This is what I'm confused on, and then you can talk around this. Okay. My confusion is so earlier we agreed that I think high value men are people in general that can partition resources.
Yeah.
In the broadest of senses, are people that can partition resources. But it feels like when you guys talk about alpha males, there's this weird kind of like double speak happening where alpha males are, Rollo mentions the pool boy a lot. And we look at the pool boy, so the woman wants to fuck the pool boy while she's dating the poor beta bucks guy. But I feel like the beta bucks guy, more often than not, fits the definition of like a high value man or an alpha male. He's somebody that usually commands a lot of resources, partitions them, is relatively successful, displays a level of competency. Whereas the pool boy would be the beta. He's
poor.
Yeah. I don't want to say a loser, but if he's like 18, he'd be a pool boy.
But
if
not
he's like
arousing.
a 35-year-old pool boy guy and he's got nothing else going on in life, he's like a loser. But somehow in that situation, it feels like we're calling him like the alpha fucker versus the beta bucker. Like, so what is the alpha?
Generally because, so the whole pool boy like scenario there, it's usually the rich husband who, wife's at home just lounging out of the pool and she's fucking the pool boy. Okay. I mean, every porn movie starts that way, right? But it's
stuck in the
primarily because the pool boy represents the peak as far as like alpha fucks is concerned, whereas the husband or the rich guy who has provisioning, protection, and parental investment, he represents long-term security to that woman, whereas for lack of a better word, the pool boy, right, the guy who's the hot guy that she is aroused by, she still wants to fuck that guy. Although we want to say that, well, the guy who's got all this money, we're going to say, well, relatively speaking, if that guy is rich and he can provide for long-term security, logically he would be the one to choose. But yet we still see her cheating with the pool boy, right? So what happens is you've got alpha fucks and beta bucks, and so usually what happens is, like, would women love to have both of those together? Yes, of course they would. They would like to have the complete package. You'll hear women say that all the time, but this is just me spitballing here, but like right now, I think in particularly because women have entered into the workforce, because they have educations, because they have basically become the men that they wanted to marry, they don't need men anymore. They want men. Who do they want? They want Brock the bartender. They want the pool boy because he represents the hot, fun sex, the short-term, sexual genetic benefits guy. They don't need it because they can take care of that shit for themselves.
I guess what I'm not understanding, and this is what I don't know if there's a way to reconcile this. Let me just define
really quickly, because everybody's going to like lose their shit on this. But like whenever we talk about like alpha, beta, whatever. And if you want to get into sociosexual hierarchies, you'd say delta, gamma, whatever. But I only ever use alpha and beta because it just distills these things down to placeholder terms.
Sure.
So I don't think that human males are like silverback gorillas, right? Or wolves on the Arctic tundra or something like that, okay?
Do you understand? The day she got married, the alpha was the guy she married. And
I understand what you're saying, but because you're making this appeal to evolutionary biology, but when we look at alphas in other species, those alphas are never, or very rarely are they the way that we describe alphas in society. When we're talking about alphas,
that's what I'm
there's
saying.
not like the silverback. There is no silverback gorilla who's the alpha who like runs into the forest, comes back, fucks a woman, and then leaves, right? These guys are very pro-social. They're leaders for primates, especially. Not just dominance, though. There's a lot of prestige as well. There's a lot of like mutual grooming that goes on with gorillas, right?
Primates, yes.
Primates, yes. So for instance, like being pro-social, grooming other primates are all very important. Because regardless of how strong or alpha you might think a chimpanzee is, 2 or 3 others are going to kill him if he's an asshole. Nobody's going to want to follow that guy. There is no such thing.
Because beta males form coalitions to take down.
So with the chimp, absolutely. With silverback, it's a little different. He's not as pro-social. He doesn't want any other males around at all. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I think the difference, like I said before, is we're just using it as a placeholder. Alpha just means more than beta. It doesn't mean anything else.
Okay, sure. And I can accept that, but I would fight you if I was in a fighting mood. That would be a lot different because we're very clearly drawing from the animal kingdom.
Yes.
So when we use
example, if I was not getting my ass kicked right now, he's not really getting his ass kicked. This is just a complete discussion right now.
Would be like the beta lawyer guy. That would be the alpha male. The guy that is just the pool boy would be the lowest of the low in the animal kingdom. He would probably be excised from the group and he would just die.
In his law firm, he contextually is the alpha male. When the girls have girls' night and go to Thunder from Down Under, he's no longer the alpha male. Contextually, that's going to change.
That's fine, but that context you're talking about, that doesn't exist in the animal kingdom. The alpha is always the alpha. He doesn't change to the alpha depending on the scenario.
Because the silverback gorilla is always the strongest male until he isn't. And that's the reason why it doesn't change. And there's so many other factors that go, and I agree with you, there's so many other factors that go, because Homo sapiens are so much more complicated than silverback gorillas. But the thing is, the only reason when we say alpha, it is a placeholder from this point now, and then it changes whenever. It's almost holding alpha is like holding a puff of smoke in your hands. It's there for a few minutes, and then it goes away. And so it's almost like getting on a hot streak when you're playing basketball.
You know, Destiny, I'm going to make a book suggestion for you real quick because this is a lot. I think we're both drawing from the same place. There's a really great book. It's called Alpha God by Dr. Hector Garcia. I would highly suggest. You would really like that book.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, there might be. Okay. So then I just want to fixate then on this, that when we say alpha beta, when we're talking about like humans, it really has nothing to do with like alpha beta in terms of animal kingdom stuff.
Yeah, it has to do with more or less.
Sure. Okay. That's fine. So it's the same words, but no drawing. Because like an alpha for humans, a lot of the times, for instance, we're focused on like dark triad or like antisocial personality traits, right? Like the alpha, like drug dealer.
Because that's the result in the end for coming back, but that's not always the case. The quarterback of the football team can have nothing but integrity and care about his teammates, but he's still an alpha.
There are scoundrel alphas, and there are like the leaders of industry. The guy who goes.
And I would agree with that, but the star football player is the alpha in the traditional animal sense, in that he's also probably a good leader. He's very pro-social. He takes care of his teammates. He's not just out there being a dominant, like fuck you, I'm gonna kill you. If you
so he doesn't have to be dark triad, but he could. Because if you're in if we're in a situation where we're all of a sudden fighting the zombies, we're gonna want the dark triad guy. He is going to be.
Okay, I'm just going to pause this for a second. Okay, I don't know how much longer they're going to be going on this. I'm just finding myself to be incredibly enthralled by this, but I've also got the stream tomorrow, the Rumble exclusive stream that's going to be there tomorrow, and I think adding a bit more context over top of this might be a little bit more beneficial, so we can just run this back from this point in time. Otherwise, we can completely continue and just go through the rest of this debate as it's going on right now, but yeah, I'm just finding this to be a lot more educational than entertaining. There's nothing wrong with continuing to go, and like I said, I don't mind if we go, but we can add some additional stuff, play it a little faster, add some clips in over top of this stuff as well. I'll leave it up to you guys. I could put a poll, but there's a bunch of different people between the two different chats, so let me know what you guys think. I'll just let her go until the top of the hour. If I don't hear a decision one way or another, we'll figure it out and go from there. So we'll just go back to this.
The one to be willing to do the most violence to some extent.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think you're not gonna want the guy that's gonna feed random people to the zombies because he's bored. Didn't they do that in The Walking Dead where the guy like beat people to death with bat? I don't know if you want that guy as your fucking leader.
Right. Maybe not Negan, but the other whatever they do with the pistol. I forgot what his name was. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. But you are gonna want the guy who is going to be willing to do the most violence and feel the least guilt about it.
I try to like make comparisons here with like the alpha archetype. So like if you would look at like say Captain America, alpha. If you look at Iron Man, also alpha, but they're different kinds of alphas. If you got Superman, you've got Batman. Batman's the Dark Knight. He's the vigilante. And he's a dark. But then you've got the truth, justice, and the American way.
However, I will say all those guys that you described, I would agree because they partition resources. But the really confusing thing for me is when we talk about alpha fucks, beta bucks, where the alpha here is somebody that cannot partition resources, which doesn't make sense from
the pool boy.
Because the pool boy is not an alpha in literally any sense of the word.
He serves a different purpose.
So his resources is different. It is his V-shaped torso and his height and his sexual appeal to her. It's just a different resource. Because when you think about it, there is no analog for money in the Pleistocene epic, right? Money, what we use today is just competency.
Pleistocene epic.
I
know you always say that so fast.
Sorry. So the thing is, there's the analogy for competency today is money. That's why women are attracted to it. It doesn't make sense because money didn't exist during the Pleistocene epic. So why is it that women are attracted to money now? And the reason why is because it's an allegory for competency. So back then, the competency for somebody who grew up, let's go all the way back to the 13th century, Genghis Khan, the man with the broadest shoulders who could swing the sword the hardest. Women are going to be more attracted to him. What is his resource? His resource is the ability to conduct violence on her behalf to protect her offspring. And so that's why when we see the pool boy, well, not we, but the wife sees the pool boy, she sees him as more of a physical protector, subconsciously, not consciously.
I understand what you're saying, and it's a nice story, but I don't think it lines up at all. I don't think that because there's no genetic attractiveness to somebody that can't partition resources. Historically speaking, in terms of but that can only sometimes be a proxy for it, right?
A lot of women. Okay, so here's the reason why. Let's go back to the science. 20% of men on I'm sorry, it's the top 10% of men on Tinder are getting 63% of the right swipes, and it's because of their physical attractiveness.
Yeah, but that's a super unique environment because that's like one man to every, or one woman to every 5 men.
We're talking millions and millions.
You just used Tinder as an example earlier in the conversation. I have it written down.
When you're on a 5-to-1 discrepancy,
if we were to look at Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge and the total usage compared to the population, it's a pretty significant number of women that are attracted to men just because of their physical attractiveness.
Absolutely not. And you know this if you've hung around women, because if you go into, for instance, if you go into any workplace,
60% of relationships right now are created online. So
in the low level place I work, McDonald's, restaurants.
This is a workplace.
No comment.
You can go into any workplace that's not fresh and fit, right? If you go to like restaurants, you go into kind of like working class shit, everybody's fucking. If you go into schools, a lot of classmates
the hottest girl is generally going to go after the dude who has the highest status, the Denny's waitress who ends up with the Denny's manager, like that kind of situation.
Sure, but the waitress is also fucking like the coworkers too, and the coworker, like everybody's fucking.
Let me see if I can throw a monkey wrench in all this. Okay,
sure.
Which calendar sells the most? The dad bod calendar or the Thunder from Down Under Chippendales calendar to women? Which one sells the most?
The idea that Chris Hemsworth's physical appearance does not make him more attractive to women, obviously it does. The idea that Drake's physical appearance or whoever, their physical appearance for women, it's not everything. As men, way more important for us.
I understand. Yeah, and I understand we have a desire to point to these surveys a lot where we look at like, okay, well, what do women find more attractive? And women definitely do find certain features more attractive. But I think the issue that we have is just because they find something more attractive doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go for that as a partner or even necessarily a sexual partner. So this is something I try to do.
Okay, so stop right there just real quick, because what you're doing is you're like pushing the two together. Okay, we're not talking about like the pool boy is not forming a relationship with a rich woman who's married to that guy. Right. She just wants to fuck him right then and there because they're separating the two between there. We're not talking about like forming a relationship.
Sure, but even as like
I just want to. He was hot and he was a hot guy in the foam can party.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying there, but so for the largest survey that I could find, so in 2015 in evolutionary psychology, Frederick and Jenkins did a survey of over 60,000 people. Over half of them were men, and it had to do with the average number of sexual partners between all the men. And because I'm curious, I'm trying to find like, well, are there certain guys that like fuck all the women? Like, who are the alphas or whatever? And two of the metrics that they tracked were height and BMI. So they had very short, average, tall, very tall, and extremely tall guys. The biggest discrepancy, the extremely tall guys had 12.3 partners on average. And extremely tall was 6'5" and above. And the very short guys, 5'2" to 5'4", my short kings, their average partners was 9.4. That was the biggest discrepancy. At short, which is 5'5" to 5'7", you have 11 average partners. From 5'8" to 5'10", you've got 11.7. From 5'10" to 6'1", you've got 12. And then from 6'2" to 6'4", you've got 12.1. From 6'5" on, you've got 12.3. There's not like this huge discrepancy in terms of like who's getting all these partners. And same thing with BMI. For underweight people, it was 8.2 average. Normal weight, 10.9. Normal weight. Overweight was 12. Obese was 11.7. And then obese category 3 was 9.3.
I just don't know that necessarily describes Leonardo DiCaprio. Like there's
it's
like,
not, but I think there's a really good description for Leonardo DiCaprio. And this is what I kept trying to find. Who is getting all the women? And it's not a particular trait. It's not a particular thing. It's just guys that want to fuck a lot of women. Those are the guys that get a lot of women. It's not because they're necessarily tall or necessarily wealthy. And you guys must know somebody. I think we all probably know a guy who's a fucking bum who hits way above his pay grade because he's got a good smile. He's the pool boy, right?
Sure.
Arguably, he is the pool boy. Because what does the pool boy have? Right?
What's the guy who's nailing Kim Kardashian now? Or
Pete Davidson?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, but that has to do with pre-selection.
Status.
The thing is that you also know the guy who's like really tall and good looking who can't get his fucking life together, but just keeps banging hot chicks after hot chicks. It just, the thing is, for women, there's so many different reasons why they're attracted to men, but for some women, one of those reasons is physical appearance, and for other women, it is just fucking money, and they all live here in South Beach. Like that's, you know what I'm saying?
That might be the case, but poor people have more partners on average. So it seems like I'm trying to find, like, we have these theories and these concepts, and I'm trying to like drill it down.
There are more poor people than there are rich people. You look at the number.
But it's also because poor people just fuck more because they have nothing else to do. Right? If you're a kid and you go to school and then you go home and mom's at home, right? Yeah, well, no, it's because it's more.
Fresh's expression
less shit to do when you're poor, right?
We're not in caves.
Well, I mean, depending on where you're born. No, but like wealthy people, right? You wake up at 6:30 a.m. to go to your high school pre-band practice, and then you're from school from 7 to 4, and then you've got football practice from 4 to 6, and then you go home to mom, who's a full-time mom at home, right? Your day is going to look a lot different than somebody that like goes to school at 8, leaves school at 2:30, and you've got nothing else to do for the rest of the day but fuck, right? And statistically speaking, poor people they've got more kids and they have more sex than wealthy people. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a discrepancy between tall and short people. I can't find a discrepancy between like fat and small people. So I feel like the guys that want to fuck aren't like evolutionarily the guys that just look at, it's guys that want to fuck, that go out looking for women to fuck and practice.
Like showing more intent. So you're saying logistics might have a big part in it because they're putting themselves out there more?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm saying that even though we can survey women, we can say, like, do you find this guy more attractive, or this guy more attractive, or this guy more attractive? Women will say, oh yeah, I find that more attractive. And we're very keen to say, like, well, look, they find that more attractive. These are the guys having all the sex. But that's not always true. It's just the guys that want to have all the sex, right? Like Bill Gates could probably be fucking 100 women in a week if he wanted to, but he's probably not, right?
Maybe it's a confluence.
I think I made my decision at the top of the hour. We'll go back to this, and until we get to a topic change, I'll continue to stream. But they're going to be doing, and I think this would be very interesting, especially that weird dynamic that they're going to have for the after-hour show. That one's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. We might do that one on Saturday if you guys are down for that. So, yeah, we'll watch that one on Saturday as well. But we'll continue to stream on this one, and we'll catch the rest of this stream. We'll break it down a little bit more thoroughly. We can watch it a little bit faster of the speed tomorrow because, frankly, this is kind of killing me watching it. Just it's real time. Like, I want to hop in, but I also don't want to talk over everything at the same time. And, you know, there's the opportunity to watch it live where there's not a lot of interactions and all that stuff as well. They got a big audience. It's like, okay, for the people that are over here, I do appreciate you guys. Don't get it fucking twisted or anything like that, okay? I just, you know, it's great to see the conversation that's going down there in the chat, but it's also getting late for a bunch of people that are out there on the East Coast as well. Like, for fuck's sakes, it's the other side of 11. It's 9 o'clock for me, okay? It's like, I don't mind continuing to go, but at the same time, there's a point of diminishing returns, and if we can do it better tomorrow, we'll fucking do it better tomorrow on Rumble, and it'll be fun as fuck. So wait till a topic change, and then we'll just call it right there and pick it up tomorrow. Okay? Sound good? All right. Well, we're still going to be going for a little while.
Of the two things, it is the attractive man who also wants to fuck a lot, and then he's the one with, what was the survey we saw where the top 5% of men had 150 sexual partners or something like that?
Yeah, it's the hockey stick.
I think
that is true, and that number is true. However, that top 5% of men, it didn't necessarily correlate to a trait. It was the top 5% that wanted to fuck a lot of women. It wasn't just the tallest men that were the top 5. It wasn't just the wealthiest.
I just see so many guys who want to fuck a lot of women, and they're just bad with women.
Yeah, I know, but I also like,
there's just more of them.
I know, but I know a lot of guys. Fuck, my people on my stream will know this. There are a lot of guys that are, no offense to anybody that might know who we're talking about, there are people that are losers, and they do so well for themselves because they're funny, they're charming, they're witty. They get girls to make them laugh, and they fuck so many women. And these guys don't even have houses half the time, right?
Maybe what that is a corollary to the ability to align resources. Meaning, if I'm funny, then I can have higher social alignments. Remember when we defined what an alpha male was? Or I'm sorry, we defined what a high status male was. We said he had high status social alignments. Funny people have those things.
Yes.
And so maybe that's a corollary, and that's why women find them attractive. It could be several different reasons. I think what you're hung up on is specifically the pool boy having abs and being just physically attractive. There's also the bartender who listens to her when her husband doesn't. She still might fuck him too.
Or maybe he has dark triad traits, because dark triad traits end up being, like, guys who have dark triad traits end up having higher sexual partners.
Yeah, they do, but it's because people with dark triad traits want to have more sex, right? That's the issue, is they tend to chase them more. If you chase them more,
but that only works one way. So, like, why is it that women find dark triad traits attractive in the first place?
I don't think women generally find dark triad traits. Are you familiar with the study they did where they described, like, the tennis player, and they ask women, is a really famous one. They ask
Why
women
would
if they
they
find
say
him
they're
more or less
attracted
attractive.
to those,
And basically,
borderline sociopaths?
But basically, there's
I have one here, but go ahead.
Sure, there's a whole list of like they describe a tennis player, and then in one they list like very domineering, very dominant traits, and then the other they don't. They list more kind of like submissive traits, and they ask the women who's more attractive, and all the women go towards the dominant, domineering one in the study generally. But then when they rerun the study and they just list like the first 3 sentences, and they don't have any of the dominant or submissive things, women just go with the first guy, which was interesting because they didn't consider that.
This is the one I was alluding to.
Wait, just so I understand this, so I can make sure was the tennis player famous or
no? It was just a hypothetical where they say, here's a guy who's 6'3", he's got a good serve, he's very good at tennis, and then they go on to describe him,
like
and they ask if the woman would be more attractive based on the writings that they give.
Yeah, the traits.
Yeah,
dominant
and what
versus submissive, and they picked dominant
initially, but then when they left no dominant or submissive, women picked like the baseline guy with less written about him. And as they continue to add and take away from
was the baseline guy a tennis player too?
Yeah, it was the first 3 sentences without any added descriptors to him, basically.
By the way, they've done the same experiment with hiring practices, and they found the same thing. People would just pick the first person.
Sure, potentially. Although they did in that study, they did a better job of shuffling around than just like the first person. But what they found when they started to add and take away more is there's this concept, and it pairs really well with this concept earlier we talked about the alpha male, that women are drawn towards alpha guys that are violent and all this shit. And not really. They're drawn towards dominant men, but they're drawn towards dominant pro-social men. So not just a guy that can go out and fucking kill everybody, but a guy that can go out and get other people to come with him to go kill people. Not just a guy that is like this evil fucking asshole, but a guy can be really inspirational and maybe he's a little bit mean sometimes, but he gets people to do things. And that pro-social part of the alpha thing is really, 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 really important.
Well, that all rocks on real well, except for the fact that you've got convicted killers in prison right now, and you've got women who are creating, teenage fan clubs to go get with those guys. Now, of course, what happens? Everybody says, well, they're all damaged goods. But the problem is you see this over and over and over again. Somebody just sent me this
Richard Ramirez thing where
people were flashing. The Boston Marathon bomber, those guys. Yeah, those guys.
Jeffrey Dahmer was homosexual.
I was feeling you.
Fucking girls going after.
It's what's known as hybristophilia. Okay, now are all women hybristophiles? No, but only women are hybristophiles. So there is something that maps on to the attraction to guys who have a capacity for violence and extreme violence as well.
Sure, well, that's kind of true, but like, couldn't I also argue anecdotally that there's a lot of guys that are obsessed with like BPD girls?
Yeah, I mean, they're super fun.
Yes, but we're talking about guys who are very antisocial, like provenly antisocial.
I don't know.
Like in jail for violent crimes.
I don't know if that's always the case though, because when you look at like the cult leaders,
they have to actually separate female prison guards from the male population because the guards fall in love with those that convicted.
Exactly, it's probably because the traits that they exhibit aren't ASPD traits. They're not actually antisocial personalities or traits. They usually a lot of these, especially these cult leader guys, come off as like relatively charming, relatively funny,
well,
pretty
most people
charismatic.
with antisocial personalities sort of come off as well.
They can be very manipulative.
Yeah,
but the way that they do it isn't because there's this idea of the alpha. It's just like, oh fuck you, bitch, I'm gonna get you. But that's not usually how it goes. He's usually very charming, can get women to do a lot of crazy shit because he's like so manipulative.
So let's just to try to find a common ground here. Again, the book by Cindy Meston and David Buss of UT Austin. They wrote a book called Why Women Have Sex. They came up with 237 reasons why women have sex. And so the main thing is you're not wrong about any of those things. Anecdotally, we can come up with tons of reasons where a girl is a good girl and then also she moves to Miami and she ends up working in a club. She ends up cheating on her fucking boyfriend. We can come up with numerous examples of all these things happening. And the thing is, the main thing I would take away is there's just more variation with women than there is with men. That's the only thing I would take.
I got to say, this is Rob Henderson. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Rob. In modern society, the most violent gang members often have the highest status compared to their non-violent peers. Young male gang members between 14 and 18 years old were 5.7 times more likely to have had sex and 3.2 times more likely to have gotten a girl pregnant.
Sure, but listen to what you just said there.
That wasn't August of 2022.
That wasn't the pool boy, though. That was with the people at the top of their particular games.
Well, we're also talking about violent
but there were people that could petition resources, not the pool boy, right?
Violent gang members, I guess they could participate in resources.
Yeah, we agreed earlier that Epstein could, and he was a piece of shit.
So if your point is there are multiple different ways to be alpha, I agree. Totally. I don't.
Well,
it doesn't just have to be physical.
The prestige alpha, where you're like a leader and you exhibit a lot of pro-social behavior, I think is the key one that most women are attracted to. It's not just a guy that's an asshole or a guy that's an alpha.
I don't know about most, but they're in the middle of the deviation. I would agree with that.
Okay.
Rob Henderson again. A man's height had an enormous impact on how desirable he was to women.
On how desirable, but not the average number of partners.
The most popular men were between 6'3" and 6'4", which of course tracks because that's what they set the filters to.
True, but that study that you always bring up shows that women value relative height more than just absolute height.
See, it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up because we were talking about this recently. I've kind of changed my opinion on this as far as height is concerned. It's not like I used to say, well, guys would be like, oh, Rollo, I'm 5'9", I'm doomed. I'm never going to find a chick. I'm always like, okay, we'll find a girl who's 5'8". That's not enough because what happens is that guy who's 5'9" stands next to you. And now he looks like the hottest guy in the fucking club because he is the one that's taller than your man. So again, we go back to the perceptual thing once again. It's not necessarily finding the guy who's or finding the woman who's just 1 inch shorter than you. You also have to be be higher, taller than everybody else in the room.
So would you guys say height is a byproduct of height attraction is a byproduct of absolute? Or you're saying it's absolute?
I'm saying that height can be an attractive quality, but I think we jump too quickly from what do you find attractive to what are men where women actually
So they're
selecting
not actually
for.
sleeping with them.
They're not
even though
selecting
they're
for it. It's just like
saying,
a correct.
I just know
Yeah,
too
it's
many
a
male
barrier of
strippers
entry.
who've been with 300-400 girls.
Yeah, but like, what percentage of the population are male strippers?
Right, but the thing is, while that is the case,
that's it.
While that is the case, that's the reason why those women are selecting them, because of their physical attractiveness. Like at some point, the 6'3" Australian guy who has six-pack abs, who just has a plethora of women coming after him, does show that women find physical attractiveness.
And I agree with that. Yet there's no shortage of doctors and lawyers, that are happily like in relationships. It's not like some guys like, fuck, like I became a lawyer at a law firm. I'm a doctor. Like I have a six-pack. I'm never gonna find a woman. Like those people don't exist.
I think what we're talking about, though, is the guy who can sleep with hundreds of women. I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying that those guys who can, there's usually something that they do that is above and beyond. They are
true. And the thing that they do that's above and beyond is they go for women. That's the big separator, is whether or not you go after the women or not, right? Because again, when you look at the average heights and you look at the average partners, you're not finding that like all these women, it's like 15 average partners when you're 6 foot plus and only 3 partners for guys. Like even guys that were 5'2" to 5'4", my short kings, no offense, even those guys were on average like 9.1 partners. They were like 4 average partners away from the guys that were 6'5"
I guess I'm
plus.
confused. If the average North American male has 6 partners, how is the 5'2" guy having 9
this was a survey. That number sounds low to me. I haven't heard that before. I thought the average number of partners for the North American male was between 9 to 11. That's what I heard.
Maybe it is. I thought
6
they were
sounds
having
low.
less
It
sex.
might be like average relationships or something, but the average number of partners I've heard. And again, this is a 2015 study, evolutionary psychology, surveyed 60,000 people. So I'm keen to.
I'm pretty sure.
So from what I
in the
understand,
United States, or what was
in the
it,
United States,
the demographic?
So from what I understand, Destiny, you're saying that if the guy wants it to happen, he'll get more partners.
I'm saying that if you take a guy who's 5'4", makes $36,000 a year, okay, and isn't that in shape compared to like a fucking Giga Chad 6'2" guy, if the 6'2" guy is like, I'm gonna focus on work and I'll just fuck whatever comes my way, and the 5'2" guy is like, I'm gonna fuck everything I fucking can.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
think
go
any
hard
of
for
us
it.
disagree with that.
That short dude is gonna pull way more than
there's
that.
this thing called the pickup community, of course.
Exactly,
yeah.
And from that pickup community too,
There are
so I'm
Asian
trying to
pickup
keep everything
artists.
data driven. I know you bring up your strippers, but if I want to lean into the anecdotes, something that I hear very commonly from the pickup community, and something that I've seen personally a lot, is you will find these guys in these incel communities. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to some of these subreddits, but people will post these pictures. Dude is like relatively attractive,
Yeah, I've seen that
5'11",
too,
good.
yeah.
And then
Yo, he was trying to say that, the small percentage of people are on dating apps, but now he's going to go to Reddit. Come on, man. Come on. I think that, I think that would be a good stopping point, to be completely honest, because, I want to add the commentary over top of it, but then at the same time, I want to keep it live and have a consistent flow to the audio as well. So, just so I have, because there's no timestamps or anything like that. We might just run back this entire argument because there's a bunch of different things that he was hopping through there as well. So that would be good as well, because they were going for, like, when did they go live? I just want to go ahead and, time everything out on this one because, okay, so 29.5, so cancel, okay. Or they just, no, okay, it doesn't look 109 minutes ago. Started streaming 109 minutes ago, so okay, 109. 9 minutes, we'll come back to that tomorrow. We'll do that live on Rumble because that'll be very interesting as well. I think that would be that'd be good to have it over there. Thanks to everybody for turning out for this. Okay, go over to Fresh and Fit. Go check links in the description. You can go over there. I'm gonna listen to it in the background as well, just so I can get all my references. I'll probably listen to it 2 or 3 times, have a list of things that we can go through as well, and we'll have a much more thorough breakdown of that stuff. But I'll make sure to post when that stream's going to be going live. Regular time should be going regular time live tomorrow over on Rumble, so check it out then. And thanks everybody. Meme, Brian, George, Ed, you were in here as well. You guys were bouncing between both chats, and I appreciate you guys for that. And even on an off night for Monday, we still had like 30-40 people here, and a couple of different times the Rumble was bouncing up and down, even with the technical difficulties off rip. I appreciate you guys for that. So if you were enjoying the stream, please go over there, go see the boys. It's a good discussion that they're having so far, but I know that there's a bunch of shit that we can add over top of this tomorrow, so check it out. It'll be on Rumble, over on Good Rumble. I got a fun layout that we'll be able to do over there. So, with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Coswell. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.